Your sweater.
Thank you.
It's very cheap.
10 years old.
Is it?
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the March 8th School Board meeting. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there any review and revision to agenda?
So a couple of links were livened up, but otherwise it's as sent last week.
Summary of non-public actions from February 15th, 2023. Ms. Ames made a motion to approve the non-public minutes from January 18th, 2023. Mr. Cutter seconded the motion. The motion passed 5-0-0. Ms. Ames made a motion to approve the non-public minutes from February 1st, 2023. Ms. Harrison seconded the motion. The motion passes 3-0-2. Andrew and I abstained because we were not here. Presentation and recognitions.
So we're going to start tonight with our Director of Special Services, Sophia Fowler, and she's being assisted, I think, by our Principal, Dan Mitchell. Supported by, I like it. And they're going to talk a little bit about preschool programming for next year. So.
Preschool programming. So I've spent some time in collaboration with the preschool teachers and the preschool staff, as well as Dan and Maura at the elementary school, writing down and actually outlining what preschool looks like. There was no document that actually went back to this is the state regulations about it, this is how it all links together, do we have a process if another school approaches us and wants to tuition in a student. So I started with a basic document and then it just kind of grew with a whole bunch of hyperlinks. So I started with this one, which the program overview, that DOE approval doc. Whenever you have a special self-contained program within a school district, it actually requires DOE approval. So that's the doc actually for the entire district, because they just keep adding to and adding to. But that has the approval for the special education preschool classroom that we have. The regular early childhood classroom is kind of where I'll start next. So regular early childhood placement is what we call our preschool that has our peer friends in it. And that's the description with the ed code around how class size and how many students are allowed to be in that program. The preschool special needs program, that's the classification that it's given for more of those, for those students that have, for the classroom that has less typical peers in it than special education peers. So that's the class range, that's the how many students it can exceed, scroll up, it can't exceed, the age ranges and so on. Some of this is repeated in answering questions, so it may look like that the information is repetitive, but it does have a purpose. So the hours of our preschool program, both the early childhood program and the special needs program, is 2.5 hours a day. Then the number of days per week ranges with special education students from drop-in services to 2, 3, or 4 days a week as determined necessary by the IEP team. Then when we were discussing what is a right-fitting preschool for Litchfield, that although we can have up to 20 students in a program with peers side by side, that's a lot of preschool students at age 3. So in discussion, we came up with that 12 students in a regular side-by-side program, which means 6 of the students are special education and 6 of the students are not special education. So that would be our peer friends. In the preschool special needs program, which is the program where more students are special education than less students, we capped it at 8. Those students oftentimes have significant needs and require more intensive supports. So looking at that and saying right fitting is probably 8 for the needs of the program. So the program description was preschool students attend Griffin, receive instruction in one of 2 placement settings. They receive instruction from a certified special education teacher in academics, as well as in play skills, because it's preschool, and then it goes on to describe that. Each year, tracking the placements of students is really important, because it's not just a matter of sign me up at Power School and I'm assigned to a classroom. In a preschool program, you have a morning program and you have an afternoon program. So when you assign a teacher, it looks like this teacher has 50 students, when in reality, they may only have 24 in the morning and 22 in the afternoon, whatever that equals out to. So what I designed was, in order to track yearly placements, it's actually a spreadsheet where you can insert your peer friends' names as well as the names of your special education students. That way, as you're looking, as students are coming through and becoming eligible throughout the school year, you actually know which classroom you have space in to be able to populate a student. So if one classroom fills up and you have the ability for another classroom, you know where. That way you can also tell a family, these are your times that are coming, these are your days of the week that are coming. So it helps to kind of narrow that down. It also provides the information for the office staff. So as they're looking at where does this student need to go, where is this, how many days a week, they can then do Power School around that. So the learning outcomes, some of this is still in fluctuation. So what's written in blue is we must add additional learning outcomes in social emotional learning. Currently, our curriculum is the creative curriculum, which aligns with the TS Gold reporting system that's required by the state. So in the creative curriculum, it isn't as expansive around that social emotional learning. So we felt that that was still an area where we could do better and we could expand. So we listed some student outcomes, such as increasing their level of independence, natural supports, increasing mobility, improving social communication, and so on. But coming back to that, once we had written it down, we felt that we definitely needed to come back and do that, expand on that one. So staffing. In each of the classrooms, there's a certified special education ECE teacher or a dual certified. So because it's a special education program, you don't necessarily have to have a dual certified teacher. You can have just a certified special education ECE teacher, but dual certified is acceptable also. Para-educators as determined necessary, and then other staff such as speech pathologist, occupational therapist as needed. So admission and discharge criteria. So for the regular early childhood program, peer friends was first come, first serve, waiting list to be implemented to fill the open program spots. This year, we filled all of our program spots and we had 24 on a wait list. So wait listing for those other program spots is an important component, because when you get to September and a family has moved out of town, they don't always tell you they've moved out of town, because we are required by the state to have a certain ratio in our classrooms for non-identified peers and regular and identified peers. That wait list is really important, so we can take the next name off the top of the list.
Can I just ask a quick question? Is that size of a wait list typical for Griffin, or is that kind of
So there's some
increasing?
historical data about that
Oh,
that I can show
okay.
you.
Okay,
It's a
never
little
mind.
further down.
Oh, wait.
So is it in that link up above?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think
There's
we may have to go back there.
historical
Yeah,
I don't
I think
have
it was.
access to the link above either, DOE approval document, so I don't know.
Oh, I'll fix that. Anyway, so all the students follow the general education enrollment procedures, and no peer friend will be admitted to the program without first completing enrollment. For the preschool special needs program, all students will follow the general education enrollment procedures. Students who require considerable adaptations or modifications, preschool age 3 to 5 prior to the September 30th cutoff. That was kind of all outlined on that first page when it talked about that special education. The application process is more for when students are coming from a different town to us. I needed to actually outline what we needed in order to be able to have them come into our program. Some school districts actually don't have a preschool program, so they reach out to other schools to tuition them in. So in that instance, it's important for us to have the evaluations, if it's necessary, a functional behavioral assessment, IEP, and medical records. So for non-Litchfield residents, there would be the rest of that. And scroll down. So discharge criteria is one of two ways. Either the student shows significant improvements from special education and they test out of special education, or they go to kindergarten, or first grade actually, because kindergarten is considered preschool. But so the completion of the program so that they would move into first grade. So participation in least restrictive environment, it just described that the early childhood setting is the least restrictive environment for a preschool setting. policy and procedure for behavior that just links to the policy and procedure for policy behavior for Griffin Memorial School. So it's not anything, I just felt it was important to add it in there, that it's not anything different.
On the numbers and enrollment,
Yes.
I'm just trying to make sense of all this, right? So we have, up above, it says regular early childhood shall not exceed 20, preschool special needs shall not exceed 12. I see 30 referenced in this document down below, but if I combine the two, we're at 32. And if I look at our enrollment report, we have pre-K at 45. Help me balance all these numbers.
So
I don't get it.
Yeah, those are total numbers and then sections. So we could have, as you were saying before,
Yeah.
we could have 48 students, but we have 3 sections of, well, 18 would equal, 44. So each section we want to keep at those max numbers.
Right.
But then you have the total enrollment, because you'd have your Monday, Wednesday AM and your Monday, Wednesday PM. That goes to your total
So your
enrolled
total
students.
45, but that's not.
But sections are the smaller numbers, and that's where we've got those target numbers of 8 for the kind of intensive needs, and then the 20, or actually I think we said 18,
12. We brought it down to 12
12 for the,
for those other classes. I have a spreadsheet that may be easier to understand. So when you divide preschool up, it's one teacher, but 1, 2 programs, 1, 2, 3 programs. So it's actually 5 classrooms of students when you add it up. So in
For one teacher.
two teachers.
2 teachers, 5 classrooms, 2 teachers.
One teacher has
one
two
teacher-
classrooms
Lot
and
here,
another
yeah.
has
One,
3.
one teacher has a Monday through Thursday full day program, in addition to what she blends into a Monday through Thursday afternoon program. And
That's the
then
current,
that's
not
the
what's
current.
proposed.
And then another teacher has a Monday, Wednesday
Yep.
morning, Tuesday, Thursday morning,
Morning.
Monday, Wednesday afternoon, Tuesday,
Okay.
Thursday afternoon. So then you have, those are all the sections that the sum of all of them is that
Is the
big
40.
number.
Is the
Yeah.
correct.
And they prep on their days they don't have
So it's not just preparation, so because
Meetings.
special
paperwork.
education
This-
is
I can't even
rolling.
imagine the paperwork and early
Yeah,
intervention.
it's straight through, so
I
to meet the collective
Yeah.
bargaining agreement, then we kind of just give them that lump time.
Right, so
Yeah.
special education is rolling coming in from early intervention, so preschool starts at age 3. If they turn 3 in
The day they
December,
turn 3.
that's the day they
Oh,
start. So they have to have days to do evaluations as well as any other IEP meetings, but hold all those other meetings and then create the materials for the students.
So they would do that on Fridays
do
and
that
do the, yeah, I get it.
Yep.
Not my-
And then that way they
Not my
have,
population.
they have the same day off, the 2 teachers would have the same day off, so they would still have time to have a PLC together.
Do any of the kids double dip? Do you know what I mean? Do they go to 2 programs?
They cannot.
Well, they might go to all right, is that later on in the
Yep,
presentation? Sorry.
we'll talk about that. Okay, so scroll down. I'm trying to figure out where we're at. So using a universal design for learning, just so that all students have access, behavior intervention plans as determined necessary, peer friends. Scroll down.
Are those model students, peer friends?
Your friends are,
Okay, just
peer
checking the
friends are
lingo.
your peers that are not identified. So it's a peer friend are those students that would
Yep.
pay tuition. So scroll up just a little bit. So peer friends, we currently have peer friends in our program. And the 4-year-old students that are in our afternoon program basically enroll into kindergarten because a student has to be 4 prior to the end of September 30th cutoff, so that they're filtered into their classroom year or their class year for graduation. So those students that would be our peer friends in our 3-year-old program, through discussion and collaboration, we talked about offering those students that were already in the program the consideration or the intent to re-enroll. So would you like to come back next year? Do you have a preference of what 2 days you would like to come back next year? So that way we have the information first, or parents can say, I'm sorry, we're moving. We're buying a house in Florida. So that way we know, okay, you're not going to come back. That means another spot we don't need to. Or, yes, we're coming back. Okay, so we're going to make sure you get into programming first. So that's what that re-enroll in blue is. Re-enrolling students are then placed into classrooms first. That classrooms is the link to a similar doc up above, or a similar spreadsheet up above. Can you actually click on classrooms, because that may help to provide a visual for Mr. Cutter. Okay, so when we were talking about classrooms, the current proposal is to make the days of the week back to back. If it was one of the things that I learned over COVID, it's that for planning purposes, parents were far more successful with getting their students to school if the days were back to back. So they could count on Monday and Tuesday, I'm here, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm here. I found that you had less consistency with parents when you did a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. And there's absolutely no rhyme or reason as to why you have to do it that day. So when you look at this in this proposal, so this is the MT stands for Monday, Tuesday, the WR stands for Wednesday, Thursday. So the top 6 spots are for SPED, the bottom 6 spots are for your peer friends. The morning program, which is color-coded, is 8:30 to 11 a.m. Now, if you had a special education student, and I think this answers your question, Mrs. McDonald, is if you had a special education student that needed more days, you would put their name in 2 spots. But that's where that would stand. And then if you scroll down, now Chloe just happens to be the current name of that teacher. For me, it just organized it in my head, which is why you see Chloe. So in the afternoon program, we determined that we wanted our special education students to come 4 days a week as we get them prepared for preschool. But that our peer friends, because they are not special education, we wanted them to come 2 days a week. The purpose of that is because we want to be able to get in as many peer friends as possible prior to kindergarten to have a school experience. That way also, if we start to see any concerns, we've got them in our program and we can either apply some RTI or we can move forward with a family and say we have more concerns.
So is peer friends equal to regular early childhood?
Peer friend, that classroom is regular early childhood because 50% of your population would be paying tuition, so they are considered typical peers, peer friends. 50% of the population of that classroom is special education. So that is considered regular early childhood,
So
not intensive needs.
To be clear, this is what you're proposing for next year. That is not what's currently in place.
That is not what's currently in place.
Currently, students are going, 4-year-olds are going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
week, yes.
4 days a week to
Correct.
prepare them for entering kindergarten, and we are proposing to half that.
For our peer friends, because they're not identified students, and so we can get as many students in prior. So currently, only those, I'm going to use the term 6, only those 6 students could, for peer friends, are coming. When if we halved that, we could actually have 12 students having a preschool experience prior to actually starting kindergarten in the fall.
But you're also impacting families that are counting on this
Pre-
program.
Preschool is not daycare, so it's, remember, it's only 2.5
But
hours
it's
a
a
day.
service that we offer today that we're no longer going to be offering potentially next year.
Correct, that's why
So
we're having it.
basically,
However,
what it
there
co-
were a lot of people on the wait list.
What it comes
either,
down
so
to
it gives
is-
more people
we,
opportunities.
right now
But
we
I-
looked
that's
at
great.
where we
I'd
have
do it if it was only
an
2.
experience that offers a few more, and now we can offer more fewer days. So that's where the balance is.
Great.
I understand.
Yeah.
But there are
understand.
45 students currently enrolled in preschool right now.
But they're not all typical. They're
That's what I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask, that's my follow-up question.
Yes.
How many of those are peer friends versus identified?
I don't have that number, but I could
But I
open my
think it's
laptop
more
and find
than-
it out.
It's half, is my understanding.
No, because we have one program where if you scroll down,
In this?
yep, in that. So we see where it says Courtney AM, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, SPED.
Mm-hmm.
That's currently what the morning program is with no peer friends in it at all.
And that's a 4-year-old
That's an
program?
intensive,
That's the intensive needs.
intensive needs, all ages.
Okay, so that was my other question. How is this broken down? This sheet is very helpful as far as the grouping.
Correct.
How is this broken down by age? So
So-
are the 4-year-olds receiving also slotted for 2 days a week?
So the breakdown, let me say it this way. We love to have our 3-year-old friends come in the morning because 3-year-old friends tend to nap in the afternoon. 4-year-old friends tend to come in the afternoon.
Okay.
The breakdown by the state is ages 3 to 5 before the September 30th cutoff.
So you don't have to break it
So
down by
we
3
don't
and 4.
have to. So if we have a 4-year-old student who still naps in the afternoon and would benefit from being in a morning program, we absolutely can put them in the morning program. However, it could be considered that maybe that friend to wean them off the nap to get them ready for kindergarten really should be in the afternoon program.
Right, so it's an
But
individual basis
It's
decision.
individual basis decision.
Okay.
Correct. So then that's the morning program. So the afternoon program, going down to Courtney, looks a lot like the one up above. Again, Courtney's just the teacher. That was just a way to do it in my head. Would be the special education students come 4 days a week so that they can prepare them for kindergarten because they're already in special education. But for our peer friends to open that up so that to give our peer friends a Monday, Tuesday, or a Wednesday, Thursday program so that we have more peer friends coming in, having the experience prior to kindergarten in the fall. Can you go back to the original document?
So what I'm trying to, I guess, understand is,
Sure.
are the numbers you're proposing for next year a decrease of the numbers that are currently there for peer friends? Because it seems like the reduction in the creation of the 8 and 6 or the 12 and 6 is now instituting classroom guidelines that are going to reduce the number of students in the preschool classrooms, which would therefore reduce the number of peer friends that would be able to attend.
It's
they'd have
actually
2
more.
and 2.
It's actually more because this
Some will
year
come
for the
too.
3-year-old program, and please correct, I believe it's 3 days a week in the morning. So we've already lost they get 3 days.
2 days.
2
Monday,
days.
Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Right.
The 3-year-old
Okay.
program?
Yeah.
The 3-year-old program. So when I looked at all the numbers, I think we're actually adding more peer friends to the program because we're splitting it in half.
But because we're splitting it in half, those kids are now getting half the education that they would have gotten had they been in the preschool
They
program.
would have been in 4 days.
4 days a week.
They'd be in 2 instead of 4 now.
So what that provides it is the opportunity for repetition. So special education students really benefit from the repetition. So what you teach on Monday and Tuesday, you reteach on Wednesday and Thursday when you have those students. So that our peer
I understand that, but I'm talking
friends-
about the peer friends.
Yes, the peer friends would get it once. But remember, they're our peer friends. So because they're not special education, we've already determined that they don't need the level of intervention that our special education students need.
I was a
Can I ask a
stay-at-home.
silly question?
for.
I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time with the peer friend term. Is that like normal?
That's normal. Yep. So
Can
in
we just call
Nashua,
it
they call
student?
them.
Is it
Model
peer friend?
student, yeah.
They're
Is it
all
student?
students.
Well, I get that, but I mean.
I don't know about you guys. I was a stay-at-home mother, and I would never do a 2-day-a-week program with my 4-year-old because I wanted them to build up.
I would never do a 2 or 4-year-old.
Because I wanted them to build up my regular kids,
Sure, so
not
in-
my peer friend children, to build up their stamina because they never
So
went to daycare.
In that instance, if the concern is that you want your child to have more, you still have the opportunity to go to a daycare.
I
So
don't want to go to a daycare. I
or a
want to go to a
different
preschool.
program.
That's why I stayed home.
Right.
So I'll have to find a preschool.
Right, well,
Yeah.
you would anyway. I mean, as part of a parent searching for preschool options, GMS is one option available to people in our town. It's still tuition based, so my kids went to Londonderry for preschool because I liked their programs and they had what I
had
needed.
to find a 5-day preschool.
Right.
So,
Right.
as do
So I
most
think it's just
working
part of
double parents.
finding a preschool program that
I guess what I'm struggling to understand with this presentation are what are the changes from this year to next year?
Honestly,
I just honestly
I did
want
not
Really,
like,
really, the change is our 4-year-olds being offered a 4-day, our 4-year-old peer friends being offered a 4-day program is now being offered a 2-day program in the hopes of also eliminating that large waiting list that we have 20. We can offer some preschool to more peer friends.
But you're also charging more for less,
no.
which is
No.
further down in the
I saw-
presentation.
Further down, so
Yeah.
that has some clarification to it. So if you want to scroll down to the amount. This was just the whole registration process and what needed to happen. So for the last 10 years, Litchfield has, I say 10 years as an estimate because I got that number from the accounting department, that they have never changed the rate for tuition. The number was random. randomly assigned. There was no, it wasn't like so much per hour. I think when I did the math out, it was like 15.58 per out per daily rate. And I was like, that's the weirdest number ever. So it was literally just a random number. When I asked, which is if you scroll down, I had asked a bunch of other towns what they charged. And again, they were random numbers, such as Pelham was 3 days a week for 130, 5 days a week at 150. And then there was a wait list. Goffstown was 3-year-olds 3 mornings a week for 150, but 4-year-olds 4 mornings a week for 200. So there really wasn't a rhyme or reason as to how they chose the amount.
But I don't see any 4-year-olds with a 2-day program.
But
Yeah.
you don't have to have a 2-day program. That's just how they choose to do their programming. So I sat down and I did the math out, which is I think in the red below. So to set a rate at $16.25 per day for a 2.5-hour program, at 8 days a month it would be $130. Currently we charge $120, I believe it is. And then for a 4-day a week, so the reason I incremented 2-day, 3-day, 4-day is if for any 1 year we have less peer friends apply to the program, and by law, I'm required to have those filled, I would extend the option to say, I have a 3-day opening. Would you like a 3-day opening or a 4-day opening? That way I can extend it and populate the classroom so that I can meet the ed code that says that I have to have. And I thought if we're asking, if the proposal is to show this, then make a decision on all of it all at the same time. So setting a rate,
Covering our expenses.
this doesn't cover the expenses, it's not meant to.
I don't think it's.
It's not meant to, because only part of it is paid.
Correct. Special education is paid, the special education portion is paid through for the budget, but this for peer friends. So it's not meant at all to compete with daycare. So the amount that you're paying does not even equal what you would have to pay, like you would pay way more at a daycare
Yes, you
to
would.
be able to go.
Yeah.
But you
But
wouldn't.
this
pay-
is only a 2.5-hour program,
It's
too.
correct, it's only a
Well,
2.5
my kids went to
hour
St.
program.
Marie's in Manchester, and it was 4 days a week, and it was that much money then.
Per month?
Yeah, yeah, so it's obviously gone up, but I was willing to do that because I wanted a 4-day-a-week program.
Yeah, and that was what, 14 and 12 years ago?
Yeah.
So a 2-day-a-week program, which is roughly 8 days a month at $130, which is slightly more than what we're currently doing. The 3-day-a-week attendance estimated at 12 days a month, roughly for $195, and then 4 days a week attendance estimated roughly 16 days per month at $260. So tuition currently is deposited into the general fund. I just felt that that was important to note that it doesn't come to the special education department, even though it's populating a special education program. It just gets deposited into the general fund. So the request is to look at that based on what we would like to be able to offer for a preschool program, which is the 2-day a week for our peer friends across the board. That way it's equal for everybody. And of course, our special education students isn't in that part of the mix because they don't pay to come.
What do you
So the
mean by
proposal.
equal for everybody?
So that when I say equal for everybody, it's 2 days is what we're offering, and then if in a class we don't have enough students apply 1 year, and then we have to start to open it up, then it's based on that opening up. Start at the top of the list and go down. Would you like to come 3 days a week? Would you like to come 4
What
days
about the
a
kids
week?
that are already there, those parents want them to go 3 days a week? They don't get the first choice?
I hadn't gotten that far,
sorry,
as far
yeah.
as that consideration. I had asked about 2 days a week, was first starting with intent to re-enroll and then choosing which 2 days a week it would be. It is the loss of a day to go into, so our current 3-year-old students, which I think we have roughly 5 or 6 of them, to go into a 4-year-old program, it is the loss of a day.
Has this already been announced to staff and to parents who are enrolling their kids?
So we.
Preschool enrollment isn't open yet.
Preschool enrollment isn't open yet. It was in discussion with the preschool staff and so the 2 teachers and the speech pathologists and the staff that work in. So it was in discussion and collaboration with them to pull together
So
this.
parents who have
document.
kids in these programs may not know of this change quite yet.
And they're looking
Right
forward
now.
to a 4-day program.
Yeah, so I submitted an intent to re-enroll, sending out a Google sheet to ask them about re-enrollment and if they had a preference of which 2 days a week. So there are 6 parents that responded to me, and then any questions that came back, I did answer. But I hadn't thought about the 3-day, 4-day until recently, where I was like, oh, I have to cover all my bases in case there is a year when we don't have that many enough peer friends to enroll. So that's when I came back and said, I have to look at this piece.
So I'm still confused on the numbers.
It's okay.
This year, looking at the enrollment chart, there are 45 students total enrolled in 3 and 4-year-old, 14 3-year-olds and 31 4-year-olds, for a total of 45 students. What you're telling me is there's going to be 48 potentially for next year, but yet you're cutting the days in half for those students. So I'm missing the part where we're
So there would
offering
be-
more of an
Hold on.
opportunity.
There would be,
I think there's over 60 if you count up the
yeah.
slots. I think there's like maybe 66.
And
Is-
that,
Okay, because I heard 48 before, so I'm,
still caught on the reducing from 4 days to 2 days. I
I am with you there, and then charging more for it
Yeah.
doesn't
absolutely.
seem right to me.
Do we need to
$5
approve
more.
this?
I don't think that's
Yeah.
a
But
big deal.
it's
That's not-
for the 2 day.
Yeah.
For the 4 day.
For a stay-at-home mom who only wants their 4-year-old 2
significantly, and
days,
and
it's great.
more than,
260, it's double, so
Yeah.
it's 2 days versus 4
but
days.
it's more than
260.
competing towns as well, right? In the analysis provided, it's
It is.
higher, like significantly higher.
Oh,
Right, but if that's that's because we're setting it at a set rate per day.
yeah, that's
Right,
why,
it's
that's
an
because
hourly
we're
rate.
doing it at a set rate.
Right.
Right.
Does this, I guess, do we need to approve this, or is this, for your information, this is what we've implemented for next year?
So I'm not certain whether it needs board approval or not. I mean, it's a programmatic decision
Right.
about what we're offering. I think one could argue that it does need approval from the board, but I don't know that from the state that there's anything that says the board has to approve it. So that I'm not clear on. We'll have to answer it for you.
Okay.
And I'm not sure we're ready to vote tonight anyway.
Yeah, so
I
this
think-
will come back to us.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. This
I'd
is.
like feedback from parents.
This is informational, and, the point I made was, it's now out there, and parents are
We'll
going
see
to
what
react to it.
happens.
When does the registration open for,
Whenever I say,
when do you say, okay, all right.
And if I may, the money piece, I encourage Sophia to get a daily rate. I said, you have to fix on something, and then you have to be consistent with it, because if I'm a parent and I'm spending this amount to come 2 days, and somebody else is coming 4 days, but those other 2 days are a fraction of the cost, which is what you see with, there's no rhyme or reason for what you have here. And the other piece, so you know, is internally, for 5 years, I've been asked the question, are we gonna change the rates? Because they've been the same for as long as anybody can remember.
My kids.
We've anchored back on, we're saying 10 years, but we think it's even longer than that it has not changed. And so we thought it was time to sort of take a look at that and come up with something that was consistent with the number of days.
And like you said, it's still far less than arranging daycare or some other, non-public preschools in the area.
But it's a very inconvenient program.
It is.
It's not, the design would not be to be for childcare. The design is to
Right.
expose your children to the Litchfield School District, have them
4 hours
become
a week.
familiar, that kind of thing.
Right.
to be
I don't
honest,
think
even
4
though we
hours
keep
is
that,
enough.
even though we keep that wait list, if we can't offer to them in an amount of time, they don't, it's not like if we have an opening today,
Right.
I'm gonna call that wait list, and someone's gonna say, I've been waiting all this time for the opportunity, I'm gonna
Right.
start
Find
tomorrow.
something else.
They have found
They've
other
figured
arrangements, and so
something
we've missed that
Expressed
opportunity
interest.
to provide them some exposure to the school and get some kind of hands-on experience with that child. Again, it's trying to address that very long wait list, which means we can give, there's a reduction here because there's an addition here. It's really an addition by subtraction or subtraction by addition type thing. And so if we go back to the offering the 4 day, it just means that we can offer more to fewer kids, or we can offer less to more kids. And it's kind of which
More
direction.
to
we're-
fewer kids
that's
is the
life.
current model that people in this town are familiar with.
Yes,
Correct.
yes. More
And all
experience
these other
to fewer
towns.
kids.
In Bow and New Boston and Goffstone, they were all 3 and day.
Yeah, and
4
I
day
don't know
programs.
what they keep as a wait list, or what their, how many students they are not allowed, are not able to offer anything to because of the.
I don't think there'll be a wait list for 2 days a week.
Look, we don't know.
The other,
Well, I don't think there'd be a wait list. There may not be a wait list too, because we can also take 12 kids off of that wait list and offer them a 2-day experience. Again, we can offer less to more kids.
But those kids on the wait list, I can use the same argument. There are other places out there. I didn't win the lottery, too bad. I have to go back to work tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? It's the same. I get it. My kids went to the Manchester School of Technology for preschool. 3-day program, 3-year-olds, 4-day in the afternoon
Yeah.
Right.
to build stamina for kindergarten.
the other nuanced concern I have that I would just say something to think about is putting a difference between a 4-day and a 2-day program for an identified versus a peer friend. If you have, and you talked about discharge, a student who is doing really well with a 4-day program and is discharged from the program and wants to become a peer friend, they can only then come 2 days a week. What happens if they backslide and then want to shift back to 4 days a week? I think by having that differential there, I can say that happened with mine, then that's the only reason I'm aware of it. You know, it's something to consider in terms of it be confusing in terms jumping from 4 to 2 versus right now it's 4-year-olds go the 4 days a week, 3-year-olds do the
Whether
2
they're special
unless
ed or
they're
not.
identified, and then they might have more.
Yeah.
But I think my concern would be with that differential. So we'll think about all of this.
You got responses?
If
What were
I
the
may-
responses from the parents? You sent some intent to re-enrolls. What were the questions? Were there any 3-year-olds, parents wanting to come to the 4-year-old program?
Yeah, they all responded that they
And they're
wanted-
gonna do the 2-day?
Yeah, they all responded which 2 days.
But I
'Cause I
can't, I'm
have-
not gonna ask you whether they were, okay.
But I've gotten parent feedback that they're not happy about it. We got an
Right
email
now?
that I'll read
Oh.
correspondence. There was a parent who wanted more room in the preschool program, that it's being cut, so I
Well, that's
think-
why I asked about communication. How do people already know this if it hasn't even been proposed?
I think
until
they
tonight?
got it from
I think
the
they got
Google
that
form.
interest, the interest to re-enroll, and the option was the 2-day program. So
When did that come in?
so there was no formal announcement, but there was enough evidence to make an assumption, I would say.
I'm going to try to articulate, there's a weird little equity thing that I think we should put out in the middle of the table, which is that we acknowledge the tuition does not cover the cost. This is a taxpayer-funded program required for our special needs students. But then you have some families who are getting a good advantage from that taxpayer funding, and others are on the wait list and getting 0. And then this is opening up greater equity toward accessing that taxpayer-funded component, because you're doubling the number of students who have access, right? So just keep that in mind, that
Half the
it's
time.
not a pay the full amount. Like if you go to daycare, you're paying out of pocket for the full cost of that daycare, minus any grants that they may receive or whatever.
How many of the kids go to daycare after preschool? Is there a bus that picks up daycare kids?
I think there's a couple of them that we picked
So
up
most of the
from
parents
from
are
a
stay-at-home
daycare, but they're all sped students that they're taking a bus.
Yeah, we have no partnership with a
all-
daycare, but
So, and
It's often
you're
parents,
also
grandparents.
saying you're proposing this change because, I believe one of the reasons you just said was that, it would be more beneficial for the sped students to be exposed to more peer friends before they come into the school system. Is that correct?
It's an opportunity,
It's an opportunity.
for that exposure. Absolutely.
What about the regular kids?
We're getting less.
Yeah, the non-peer
I know, but
kids.
the only reason this is happening is because of the sped students.
yeah,
That's
the
the
sped
purpose.
students.
That
It's the
is
purpose
the
of the program.
first and primary purpose of this program.
Correct.
Well, I understand, but they also need model students. And that's
Absolutely.
been like that. They need role model students. That's what we used to call them.
yeah,
That
and,
are peer
and also
friends, yeah.
we need more of those too, because if you think about it, as I told you, throughout the year, kid turns 3, enrolled,
Yep.
and all of a sudden our numbers are out of balance because he turned 3 on March 8th, and guess what? On March 8th now, we're out of balance.
Yeah.
It's just the way
Because
it
that's
rolls.
on their third
Birthdays, yeah.
birthday.
They're done with
They're
their
enrolled.
interview.
The
Yeah.
ability to then take the students at the beginning of the school year, so instead of having that wait list, we have the ability to then fill those classrooms with peer friends. Whether or not we have the right amount of sped students, all of those peer friend spots are filled. So at the beginning of the year, you actually have way more peer friends than you do sped friends. And then
Kids
as
turn
the,
three
right,
throughout the
as
year.
the kids
so you
turn
hold spots for the kids that
Yeah.
you see.
We
which
may
is
not
why
max
I find
out.
the
We may not
That's
max out the
with the
special ed
early
slots, but we can
intervention
max
slots the
out. We
minute
can
they
max out
turn
the peer
3.
friend spots,
Right.
peer friend
and then you have
spots.
those slots to put your to turning threes as the
As
year
the-
goes on.
But you
As the
must
year
know, because they're an early intervention, the 3-year-olds that may not be coming, no?
No, you're not allowed to find out those students until a referral is made after 27 months of age.
We put out the child
If the
find, and then
family-
they.
Correct. If the family
It's
decides
still
to
9
allow.
months.
If the family allows the early intervention program to contact the school district. If they decide and opt out of that, there's an actual opt-out piece of paperwork that they sign. They can then opt back in 2 weeks prior to the child's 3rd birthday. So then we're on the timeline of
Well, they get free,
doing special
they
education.
get free preschool.
Yeah, and I have no list of current
So-
2-year-olds living in town.
Yeah,
It'd be nice if it did, but I don't.
You'd know who to send
Exactly.
kindergarten registration letters to otherwise.
Correct.
I mean,
So
maybe
ultimate-
I'm saying something out. If there is a desire, if there is a very large wait list, has there been any consideration to adding either another para to the room or another adult to the room to be able to expand and have more students in the classroom?
So
There's
in
2 teachers, correct?
one teacher in the classroom.
No, I'm sorry, 2 overall preschool
2 overall,
teachers.
yes.
Overall,
Yep.
Correct.
two overall
One-
preschool
one
teachers.
teacher.
So what the current model allows for is the expansion of, we fill all of our special education spots and now we need another. So what that allows us to do is say, okay, we can expand it and open it up and add another special education, got to find another peer friend. So now you're in it to find one peer friend rather than many peer friends. Or that's when you can look at, okay, we've done a search, we can't find them, we know this student is coming, we need to open up a spot. And either expand it and offer 4 days, expand it and offer 3 days, and figure out a way to make that work. So ultimately, because the program is a special education program, I have that expansion in mind and built in so that if we have to go to 20, where I've got 10 special ed friends and 10 peer friends, I have the room to do that. But I don't like to start with that model because that's a lot of peer friends that would be in a program where I might not have the same number of sped friends, and keeping them smaller allows for those more intensive small groups. So 3 kids at a table working instead of 5 kids at a table working when 3-year-olds have no idea how to be in school. So by keeping it small for the classroom size and the ability to grow, but it is a special education program.
Thank you. And I look forward to getting feedback from
Yeah.
parents.
Feedback, advice, and counsel, I guess, is
Yeah.
what we're looking for.
Do you want to remind people on how to send an email to the board or community?
Schoolboard@litchfieldsd.org. Email in any concerns. I will read them
Good
during
Can you
correspondence.
put them on that on the Facebook page too? I get lots of questions about that too.
About the email?
Just an email, our email.
Yeah, it's pinned at the top of our page.
Okay.
So we're going to add this to old business for the next meeting, and figure out a way to have Sophia available and Dan available, maybe remotely or something.
I'm presenting at the next one.
Oh, so you're here.
So actually, I was going to bring Courtney Beach with me to actually give you like a visual of preschool, what it looks like. So it'll be a preschool night.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us back to Mary. So this is Mary's Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment monthly report. And she also has the, presented to the board, I restricted access to the slideshow, because the purpose is to do it at the forum on the 15th. So, but the board has access to it so that you can see what she's planning. But we'll start with Mary's report.
I'm really looking for feedback from the board on that, so. But before we get there, my regular update. So just to give you a little update on some of our professional learning, we have a PD day coming up next Tuesday. And prior to that, we've done a lot of work around what are the needs. We had done it in September, and I was starting to hear some grumblings that maybe the needs that had been expressed in September were not the same. So I put out a straightforward facets of competency-based learning survey to staff. I had 60% of the teachers participate, which is huge. I mean, typically, if we can get 30 to 40%, we're pretty happy with that. We had 60% of the teachers participate over all 3 buildings. So that information, those numbers, have been shared with the principals just so that they have a little bit of a heads up on some of the things that people are struggling with, but that drove my creation of the PD day. I'm not going to say it's been the bane of my existence, but I've revised it 4 times in the last 2 weeks. So just another thing that we did, our admin team, we had a principal from each building, and Mike, Sophia, and I attended the Visible Learning Conference with John Hattie, which was just a really a good conference to start to think about what are the things that move the needles the most with the kids. How is what we're doing in our classes really impacting learning? So, grading and reporting, we've
So can I just ask, the visible learning is what you found, I mean, how does that information get shared to the building level? Since these
So
each
it was
of the
really-
principals, but is that through the PD session, the PD day that you're organizing? Or how's that?
This particularly, I've embedded pieces from that, but it's not. It was more of an admin focused PD,
okay.
so to help administrators be able to guide teachers and hey, that is good, but if you might have look at it through this lens and try this kind of an activity, the growth percentage is that much more. So, and it was really to get our admin team a little bit more familiar with Hattie's work and the impacts that certain activities have and don't have. Because sometimes it is very surprising that things that we hold near and dear to us are not the things that are impacting student learning.
The strategies and their effectiveness, really,
Yep.
it seems like, okay.
So I've actually shared the overview of the competency-based 101 learning that you're going to see tonight with the grading and reporting team to get some feedback. Since then, I've actually shared it with the admin team as well as members of our competency-based leadership staff team to get feedback. So we've had a lot of people put eyes on it. One of the things that I asked the grading and reporting committee was to give me feedback on questions that they felt they were getting from parents or from community members around things that are going on in their classrooms. So some of those things have been incorporated based on feedback from the staff. And just ongoing, we are looking at work study practices in the academic rubric structures. We didn't have a full group at our last meeting, so we didn't really delve into that. PERC, we met in February, maybe in the end of January. I'm losing track at this point. Yeah, February was break. We had carried over the proposal for A Long Way Gone, our 11th grade English, I believe, and maybe 10th grade, was looking to bring forward this novel as a supplement. It is graphic, as you can see as at the bottom, she talks about some of the different things that have come up from it. So this was actually proposed to us in October, and we tabled it. They had to postpone a few times, and we weren't able to get back to it until January. The will of the group, after hearing from the teachers themselves, was that they felt it was an appropriate, an important piece to include, but it is not a mandatory read. So that is something that we need an approval from the board on tonight. I don't know if you want to do that now or later. That's,
Why is this needed tonight?
I mean, it's not needed tonight, but typically when I bring forward resources, they're approved that night. Because they've gone through
The park committee.
the building process, the perk process, and then they come to the board just for a review. So if you're not comfortable doing it tonight, it can wait. That's fine.
I'll make a motion to approve A Long Way Gone as a additional resource, optional resource for the English department.
Grade 10. Grade 10.
I second.
I haven't had time to read this document, which is why I asked about the approval tonight, that's all.
Further discussion? Heidi?
No, I'm fine with it. I read it, I'm okay with it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
Perfect. 401.
So the only other thing on my report, thank you very much. I know that Nicole and Amy will be very happy with that. The only other thing on my report is the assessment and data piece. We are getting into spring testing season. I do not have the school-specific windows yet. We typically go late when we open our SAS windows for the elementary kids and middle school. But I can tell you that the SAT, school-wide SAT date is coming up very quickly. It is Wednesday, March 22nd, my dad's birthday, so I can't forget that one.
And that, do the kids have school the students have school that day?
I don't know for sure yet.
Okay, because I know that they
It's
closed.
only for juniors.
Yeah, juniors.
Yeah, it's
went
only
in.
for juniors, and they've done it, I believe they've typically done it as a closed day, but one year I think we did it as a late start, and I'm not sure what they've
Okay,
decided
I was
to
just
do.
curious, because you don't want interruptions during
Right.
that at all.
We're not mixing that up with PSATs, right? I don't remember shutting for the SAT. It's state testing. We don't shut any other schools for that.
For the SATs, do you block off the CAF? Don't
We
they do
block
it?
off the wing, I believe.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
believe we keep them in one wing of the school, now that you say that.
Okay.
Yeah, PSATs are 2 grade levels and.
Yeah, we close for
No,
PS.
it's three
It's
grade
three grade
levels.
levels, so we close for that, and seniors are off doing a senior activity because of the number
Okay.
of kids that are testing. But for SATs, where it's just one class, I am, I'm pretty sure that
just run
we
it.
actually, I believe we close off the science wing, which is the same thing that we do when it's SAS science testing.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and that will be coming up. We typically do that at the end of May. I haven't gotten a date from Joanne yet on that. Any questions on the general report?
If I may add a piece, just that last bullet item about the Center for School Climate and Learning. So, Bill Preble met with LMS faculty and CHS faculty today to explain the staff tool and what's going to be administered there. So he has done that.
The survey tool?
The survey tool. And we've received no concerns about proceeding ahead with the surveys. So that information is going to roll out pretty quickly now. We've got to get the survey available to people on the website, et cetera. I have an email with Bill Preble and Holly Preble to get everything squared away, but I just want the board to know that we're plugging ahead now. So that survey will be done by the end of the month. We're a little bit behind the original schedule, but better to do it right and give people the time.
Thank you, because I knew he was in today, but I didn't know where we had
Yeah,
left off with it.
I'm tracking that thing closer than Mary, so I want.
Yeah, and I honestly, I heard him. That's the reason I knew he was in today. So,
So the other thing that I have for you folks is I'd like to give you a preview of the presentation that I'm planning to give to the parents at the forum on the 15th. So my goal with this is to give you like first stabs of what is too much, what is not enough, where are areas that I need to address further or need to simplify. Like I said earlier, we've had a lot of eyes already on this. I have given it to the whole admin team, members of our competency-based leadership team, staff team, as well as different members of our grading and reporting team. So, and this just, I realized that this has been sitting, waiting to be, you guys have looked at it, I've asked for feedback. It's been kind of sitting, waiting to go along with this. So I would like to be able to have this pamphlet available for parents as well. Just as for those people that like paper.
Do you want me to launch it?
Please. And I'm doing double duty here because I have my paper copy, which I never do paper. But I want to be able to write any thoughts or any notes. So, all right. So I've tried to be simple with it, and really what this is competency-based learning 101. And it'll give an overview of the whole gamut of competency-based learning. I'm not focused completely on grading because there's so much more to it than that. And honestly, as we're working with the teachers, the grading is the last piece that goes into this. So the very first thing you'll see here is our why. This is sort of we call it our mission and vision, but it's our why statement. And this was created by our competency-based staff leadership group this past summer. You guys have seen this before, but they created this statement that our students will grow, learn, and apply knowledge and skills in order to communicate effectively, persevere, adapt, and think critically. So it was really important to them that they included not only the growth aspect of it, but also our portrait of a learner traits. Those are things that we as a community have agreed upon. So it goes on to say, while demonstrating integrity in all aspects of life. Competency-based learning is student-centered, flexible, and supportive of individual needs. Just a general statement of what it is. And that our students will learn and apply knowledge and skills. They will demonstrate their ability in authentic assessments and reach mastery on their individualized path. You'll see some threads throughout that. It really is, the idea behind competency-based education is really to provide students that individualized path to be able to get where they need at their own pace.
Mary, can you just remind us who is on the staff leadership group? And not necessarily names, but it's teachers.
This group was just teachers. And actually, I was the only administrator in the group, and they met during Live to Learn, and I intentionally stepped out. I went and talked and would check in periodically, but I wanted this to be something that was organically created by teachers.
This past summer?
This past summer, yes.
And
we had 18 teachers. No, excuse me. We had 13 teachers during the summer. Majority were high school teachers. We had 1 or 2 middle school teachers that joined us for that.
And then the design principles, I'm moving ahead, but it looks like those were also designed by that.
So they weren't designed by them. Those actually come from, they come from the Stack and Vanderell's books that we've referenced a few times.
Visual. Okay,
But the visual itself comes from, that was made up by that group. So there are 7 design principles of competency-based learning. In a nutshell, it's that we give students the opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge in a way that they are comfortable. If we're asking kids to analyze a text, but they're not great writers, then let's let them shoot a video or record a podcast. How are we need to be providing our kids opportunities to demonstrate their learning, not so much check the box that they took the test. And that's the very first design principle, which ties into the second one, that assessment is meaningful, positive, and it empowers learning for students. The third one is that students receive timely, differentiated support, and that's based on their own individual needs. 4 is one that always gets a little touchy. Students progress based on evidence of mastery. We are not in the state at a point where we are letting kids go grade level to grade level, but within the classroom, we are, or we should be, helping kids to be able to progress at closer to their own pace.
Is this where the retakes come in? The kids can retake their summatives and extended due dates and stuff?
Those all go back to like the whole pacing. So the next, you'll see on the next slide, the pathways. Students learn actively using different pathways and varied pacing. So that's where your relearning plans come in. That's where, we set arbitrary dates. On September 23rd, we're going to be done with Unit 1. Well, we don't learn that way. I mean, we can study and we can cram, but if we really want our kids to learn and learn how to be active learners, we have to understand that not everybody's going to do it at the same pace. And so that is where some of those additional pieces come in. Equity is an important piece. It needs to be part of what we do in the culture, the structure, and the systems within the school. In a town like Litchfield, that equity looks like we have to be providing opportunities and learning for all kids. That is something that we sometimes struggle with. And the last one is that there are rigorous common expectations for learning. So that's really where the rubrics come in. That's where some of the policies and procedures that we've created over the years, many of them predating me, that's where they lie. It's so that we have clear expectations of what is expected of our teachers and our students. So I did, because of the setup of the visual that you guys have had access to before, but I just linked it in there so that you can see. I want to make sure that we all understand that this is not me coming up with some crazy out there idea of what we should be doing. We are working with staff very closely, and we have a really strong group that is ready to be moving forward with this and want to be moving forward. I cannot tell you the number of times in the last week as I've been prepping this and asking for feedback on it that I've had specifically high school teachers in my office saying, Mary, why are we not moving?
I'm not grasping what that means. What do you mean by not moving?
We've been doing this for 5 years.
Like, why did
Looks
they
like this
just
was
do
rolled out
it,
in
start in the
2014.
summer? Why did they just meet about it in the summer? That's where I'm confused.
We've been meeting and learning and doing PD about it.
Yeah.
This past 2 years ago, we tried to start it, and unfortunately, we lost a number of the staff. That we did a leadership training with staff between the middle school and high school, specifically around competency-based leadership. Most of the people that participated in that have left the district. So this past spring, when it was offered again, we sent a team of 7 specifically from the high school because they were people that were actively trying to move things forward. So that group went through this training, and we started meeting in the spring. They were meeting with administration from the high school, and then they asked me to come in and try and guide. And we expanded it over the summer we opened it to anybody that wanted to come during Live to Learn to participate. And since then, we've actually targeted to make sure that we have representation on that committee from all 3 schools. So it's not that this is the first time anybody's hearing about this.
Oh, I know, it's been around for 5 years.
It's been around since before I got here. But
Well, and I think that's
It
why
was
I'm
just
jumping.
rated differently.
I'm jumping to 2 slides down from this, and,
Okay.
I think that this the slide that's 2 slides down.
You want me to jump down?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
please. I think this slide should be up in the presentation because this gives the background of why or when competency was a state issued thing. And
We were the first ones in the state to do it.
but I read this and I read this sentence. Campbell High School opened Campbell High School opened in what, 99?
2000.
2000, but just didn't roll out till 2014.
No,
So-
we were
That's
ahead.
why,
We were ahead of the state. Us and Sauhegan were the only 2 high schools in the state of New Hampshire that were pushing for it wasn't called competency-based at the time, but what is basically a competency-based system.
I think opening with the background of why it's here in Litchfield
Okay.
and makes sense to start with, and then getting into
Sure.
the flow.
I agree
of
with
it.
that.
All right,
Yep.
it's good.
And maybe how it's evolved too, because from what I understand, it's.
But in all
very
honesty, it
different-
hasn't evolved. That's the problem, and that's why we are where we are today, is that when it opened with a really progressive, for the time, a really progressive idea, it was too early. I know that the community did not support it, but we're talking 2001, 2002. And we've reverted to really traditional practices. We have said, and this is where I've gotten in some hot water over the years here, we have said that we are competency-based. When I came on board and was told the high school is competency-based, and I talked to teachers and they said, no, we're good, Mary, we are competency-based. I focused on the elementary and the middle school, and the reality was, yes, we had competencies, but we were not assessing or grading or reporting in a competency-based manner. And so in making those changes, that has been a heavier shift at the high school than it has been in the other 2 buildings.
And I think that's a really key point because for a couple of reasons, but the one that I'm thinking of the most right now is you previously said, grading comes at the end, right? That's more at the end.
Yeah.
I really do think, maybe I'm wrong, but I really do think with my pulse, having the pulse on the town, competency-based education is not disliked or hated by many in town. It's the grading that they don't understand.
In summatives.
Yeah, they are. That's where, you can do the whole airplane analogy, right? I am with you on that airplane.
Yep,
I want a
that's the
pilot
one
who
they
can
use,
land.
yeah.
Okay,
Right.
great. And I think everyone's on board with that. So, but I think that they group together competency-based learning versus assessment on competencies. So I think going through this presentation, I think you are going to highlight the fact, and I think people are
I'm
going to
trying
walk
to hit
away.
all of the separate pieces. So
Right.
one of the pieces of feedback, and I apologize, I have a wicked dry eye, so I'm not
No, but that
crying.
is
You
the
are not
confusion.
making me cry.
No,
Liz. You
I
are
won't
not
make
making
you
me
cry
cry
today.
No, I'm so mean.
But there were 2 different parts. We have to do competencies, but it's up to each district how they grade the competency.
Correct. But I am, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but when I came on board here, I was asked to streamline that. I was asked to make sure that if we are a competency-based district, that we are doing it right. And there are a lot of districts around that are doing competencies, but they're not grading on competencies. So if the law says, and the law says that students have to demonstrate mastery in graduation competencies in order to earn a diploma. Well, if you're not connecting your grading system to the competencies, how are they demonstrating mastery? I guess
Summatives.
I really struggle with that.
I think formative should count, and I'm going there, because that's your way to showing.
But that's
mastery.
your pathway.
So wait,
That's your pathway.
I don't think we should get into this conversation
Okay.
tonight. I think
Great,
we
the
should
great-
stick
oh,
to-
yep, I agree.
But I do think in this presentation we need a
Different-
deeper dive into
into-
the formatives and summatives.
It's
and how
all,
it works.
it's all coming.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all coming.
But then you throw in the 1 through 4, and then I'm like, oh.
No, and I think
Liz, step off the 1 through 4. Get rid of it.
But I think your presentation, I have looked through the presentation. I
Me
think
too.
you do get to the point. I think you do get into the grading portion of the show, which is, I think, where you're going to find
That's
more
where
of-
people are focused.
That's where the questions are going to
Absolutely.
come from.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering if, in terms of we do it as a hybrid with respect to grading, by transferring it over to the 100-point scale, if there's a way to be hybrid when it comes to formatives, and that's part of the conversation.
Well, that is part of the conversation. And the reality is we have a misunderstanding of what formatives are. Formatives really should be things that teachers are doing with kids that are giving them the feedback or that they are self-reflecting on so that they know where they are headed. Where are they in terms of, if my goal is that this is the competency and this is the skill that I need to get to, the fact that I'm not there yet shouldn't impact my grade on whether or not I can do that. I should be getting feedback from my teacher saying, okay, this is what you did well. Pay attention to these things. These are things that you need to focus more on. And then I should do my corrections and say, oh, I still don't really understand this. So let me go back. And it should all be a constant feedback loop until that's summative.
What if you only give 2 summatives a semester?
Doesn't matter.
It's high stakes.
If you are doing,
I think this is.
No, I know, I understand what they are, I know.
Liz, they are high stakes tests, and all I hear is that we don't prepare kids for high stakes tests. So if we only have one a semester, it's still a high stakes test, right?
So for the purposes of tonight,
It's not a test.
I appreciate this
Yeah.
presentation. I have gone through it. I'm happy to send you a couple of tweaks or thoughts that I have.
Sure.
Are you planning to review the whole presentation with us tonight? or-
That's up to you. That's up to the will of the board.
I don't think we need to, although I did also look at this, and apologies if I skipped over or didn't see the formative and summative, which is why I asked the question.
Do you know which slide?
It's in there.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's
in there.
15, okay.
It's a chart.
But, okay, so 15, where it has formative and summative in the breakout, in practicality, how is it rolled out? How are these used today? That's what I'm missing.
So I'm going to be completely honest. We are in very differing stages depending on who you are, where you are, the subject area you teach.
I think that needs to come out in this presentation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be completely honest to the board, and I know I'm saying this publicly, and but I've been hesitant to do that because I'm not trying to put blame on
It's
or
not a
say
matter.
that teachers aren't doing the right thing or that people aren't leading in the right way to be able to do this. But the reality is the inconsistent practice, that's why. If we could get consistency in our practice, if we could be focused on having high quality summative assessments and high quality formative assessments that really are giving students feedback and not for nothing, but not just a check, you did it, thank you. That doesn't tell a kid anything to be able to learn from.
I think we just need to say that.
It's easy for you to say.
Andrew, we have, and this is not new material. 30 years ago, I learned the purpose of a formative is to inform. Hence the word. It's to inform. It's to inform the learner about where they stand, and it's to inform the teacher about where the class stands when you look at all the formatives, right? So if I evaluate them all, I'm teaching chemistry, and I find that somebody doesn't understand polar covalent bonding, I have to reteach that because my class failed that across the board. Like, that informed me, right? So my goal is to get them ready for that summative, and that's telling me I'm not ready, versus you might be the only one who gets the low grade on that concept, and then you're informed, like, I gotta go see Jetty for some extra help because I'm looking around at my neighbors and they seem to be okay on that question and I'm not, right? So you're informed, I'm informed. That's the point of a formative. And go back to what we were told when we attended the Hattie session. If you grade it, it's not a formative. If you grade it, it's not a formative, because the point is, the grading is,
It's
hey,
not-
you
right.
didn't get this right. Like, if I was scoring this would be worth 0 points, or this would be worth 5 out of 10 points, or whatever. So I'm giving you the feedback, but I'm not putting that score in the book.
But they are.
But that's the difference.
And
is
that's-
that we learned about that is if it's graded, it's not a formative. The formative should be all about the feedback to the student. But that's where I think we are lacking. We still have, for a lot of people, we still have a mentality that formative is
A quiz.
classwork,
Quiz
a
and test.
quiz.
Yeah.
It's a quiz.
It's
That's
a,
exactly
The
what
little
That's
quizzies
what
are
I-
formative,
this is-
and they're little grades, and then the test is the big summative, right?
And it's
That's-
weighted more.
That's a misnomer.
it's a vocab quiz. Well, what vocab quiz, like, how does that relate to, which competency does that go to?
We don't do vocab.
But we do. And we have areas where vocab should be embedded in competencies, but they should be embedded.
So if formative is not great, and again, this is way too much for tonight, I totally appreciate that.
Now you're going there.
I'm
You're
ready.
I'm like,
ready
are you
to
kidding me? This is the world I live in.
But
I'm ready to move forward. We're gonna take it.
Wrapping our head around this is so important because
But I still
guess
don't
what
agree
I'm
with
trying
you.
to say when I say 30 years ago, this is not new material. And we've been on this, and our teachers have been educated on this, but we're used to tradition. We're traditionalists. We
It's a
took
mind-
quizzes, and there's a mindset that goes with tradition, and that's what seems to keep getting in the way of this, right?
They
And
still have them in college. They still have quizzes in college.
It's not about the quizzes. It's,
Right.
here's the thing. We can have quizzes.
Madam Chairman,
Liz,
most
we
of
can
the
have quizzes. We can have quizzes. We can have tests. And I'm going to disagree because
Oh, it's
it
all right.
depends.
We disagree.
I'm in a CAGS program. Everything I get is competency-based graded. I get all of my feedback. I'm forced to reassess if I don't get a high enough grade.
Oh, that was when I got my master's in special ed. Started. I was in a 1 to 4.
the reality is, my grades don't really average to what my end of semester grade is. It's all about the work that I can demonstrate and the growth that I've demonstrated.
I, for one, look forward to spending 5 hours next Wednesday.
You're gonna spend,
Really, I do.
you're gonna spend more than 5.
Yeah. Bring your dinner.
You know, I shared with the board that I walked into a high school classroom where I saw gold taking place, and what it was.
There's
is
amazing
There were
things going
groups
on.
of 2 students at the board explaining a math problem to their peers, right? And everybody had to go. So it was like, we explain this one, another group does another group does another. That was a formative assessment, by the way, because it was informing the teacher, did the group get it? It was having kids chime in with, you goofed that, you forgot the negative or whatever. It was all formative. There was no grade being attached to that. Kids were learning the problem versus the passive way of doing the same thing. Okay, everybody do 1 through 30 odds. Let me know if you have any questions, right? And now kids are independently working.
The challenge is once you get to the summative, and then you have 100% of your grade based upon one test.
But imagine if all the work was being displayed and talked about and discussed, and the information was flowing in that fashion. I'll bet the grades are much better on the
I'm
summative,
also going
'cause
to
I'll
say
tell
this.
you right now,
There is not, the high school specifically, each school has a agreed upon practice, not a district practice, but agreed upon practice that there should be X number of summatives in each competency per semester. So if there's one summative in a class, in a semester,
Talk to the teacher.
talk to the teacher, talk to the building admin, because they have set, specifically, I'm talking middle school and high school, elementary is kind of a different
I
beast.
think you're touching a raw spot with me. 79 failing because there were only 2 summatives in his grade.
Yeah,
You didn't
and I
pass
feel
the
like that's an
competency.
admin role.
Yeah,
too.
that
but
is
that's-
that is
and
an
I think
admin
this
role.
is a little bit of
Yeah.
a little bit of a struggle for me, because that comes to me as, well, Mary, we don't like competency grading. Well, that's not the problem. The problem is the actual implementation of it.
Well, that's
and
why
the
common
holding of
assessments would be
account-
good. They used to have common assessments. There was a bank.
You want to
of-
get me going? You really want to get me going on
Madam
that?
Okay, anyway, all right.
I had one more
All right,
thing about the presentation.
what are we gonna do on the 15th then?
So should we individually send you things? How would you
Right.
like your feedback?
However you are comfortable, I
just
don't
would
care.
like to, I haven't spoken too much, so I would just like to say that I feel like there needs to be a connection to Power School in this somewhere. Like, what should it look like in Power School? Because I think for me as a parent, that
all
is the
over the
most.
place.
It is all over the place. I see
whole other
formatives
community
in
forum.
some
Right, I thought that was
classes.
That's a whole
Not-
other. I mean, I hate to say that. I'm not the
It should be,
expert in that.
What is the ideal? Like, how should it look?
it's important, though.
Because then you're asking
they're
parents
all
to
different.
call it out if there aren't enough whatever or
In math grades,
How do
1
we
to
know
4?
to call it out? You know, I think there should be an example for like shining
So I guess-
example for each school.
I
like
guess
what
this
it
is,
should
this
look
is
like.
my concern, is that we've done parent forums on Power School.
I don't think it needs to be more than one
No,
slide.
exactly.
And I think one slide of a
Right.
snapshot of a Power School showing where to find the competency, because when you go on to Power School and to the login page, it's not there. You
So
have
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I'm not a parent in Litchfield. I can't see what you guys see.
I'll give you
Well,
my
I'll
code
give you
if I
my-
could
yeah.
remember it.
I'll come in with you.
Andrea can.
Oh,
And if
Andrea
we
Stern,
could,
yep.
like, we've talked about doing this as a separate thing, because she can show you what the parent pages look like, the difference between the app and the computer-based.
Because that's
I
where
can-
the rubber meets the road from the parent's perspective, and that's who's going to be at the
But that's,
forum,
I'll be honest,
you know?
that's not what I'm getting back. I'm getting back that parents hate competencies because teachers
They don't
aren't doing it.
understand
right.
But
They
I
don't-
think
they
that's
look
what
at
I was
Power
saying
School and they
before.
can't figure it out.
when you
You
dig
can set
down
up Power
deep,
School
I think
however
you're
you
going to
want behind
find
the scenes. My Power School looks different than yours.
I think you're going to find that they don't hate competency. They may say that, and it may come out that way,
It's a generalization.
but I think it's because they don't understand what they actually have a gripe with is the grading of it, is the assessment
Right.
piece.
So I, but
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think, but
Exactly.
I think it's important that we do this overview for people, you know, for people who have younger kids.
I agree.
Who have
I
not
will
experienced
talk to
this.
Andrea and see
Andrew
if,
hasn't seen the high
I
school
know
version.
that,
Right.
I know that Andrea is not available that night.
And again, I don't think it needs to be more than a slide, but a single, this is what the page looks like, and if you want to see your kids' competencies, not their letter grade and how it's translated, but you want to see where they are with the 2 or 3 or 4 competencies in this subject, this is the button you click.
Yeah.
I think it translates it from a concept to something applicable for parents.
Does Emma have anything to add here on
Yes,
content?
I looked at him a few times.
Right?
What do you think? Because you've been through both sides. You've
Yeah.
seen graded formatives and not graded formatives, 1 through 4s.
I have seen 1 through 4s in my math class this year.
I told you.
When I get a test back, it's 1 through 4. When I see it put it in Power School, though, I can see what I got in each competency, but not like how it. Like, I go on my phone right now, I couldn't show you what I got for a grade. It had to be on the computer. And a lot of people, to be honest with you, do not do formatives.
Why? Because they don't
They
count.
don't count. And people have told me that personally.
Teachers or students?
No, as in, my son doesn't do
Oh,
formatives.
students don't do formative.
But you get feedback on how you're
Yes.
progressing,
Yes.
which is formative. So again, I think what's happening is we're afraid to label a thing as a formative. Whereas in the past, what we were doing is we were saying, this worksheet, this activity is a formative, and now I'm gonna grade it, and then kids would say, it doesn't count because it's a formative, so they didn't do it. So now teachers have stopped that practice. They don't wanna call the thing a formative, but you still get feedback that informs you of how you're doing,
Yeah.
and that's formative.
But when I look at my kid's Power School and high school, which I'm naming which kid it is, I can see formative, not turned in, not turned in, not turned in, not turned in.
So I guess and this is
I-
where I go back to,
consider them
why?
building
What
blocks.
are we doing for formatives?
Exactly.
Because if the formatives are valuable and tied to the learning and tied to the end goal of the summative, and we've set our goals rigorous enough, then if a kid doesn't do it,
It's going to make a difference in the
But
end.
it's supposed to be, Andrew, you failed that summative. Guess what? You didn't do these 15 formatives. You can't retake that summative until you do all these formatives.
and that's what it is.
That's why it's being documented as not turned in, because.
That's what, and that's actually
If she
in the
gets an A on the
relearning
summative,
plan.
who
Teachers who've
cares?
done that.
Right?
Yeah.
If she gets a D on the summative, I'm now calling out your
Yeah,
kids.
go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah, call her out. Yeah,
If she gets a
then
D on that summative, the
you
teacher's
gotta-
gonna say, you can't retake because you didn't do all these
And
formatives. So
that's
it's all
why you
a
need to do
cover
all
our
that.
rear end scenario.
That was a tough lesson
And it's
to learn,
not
but
about
the kid
teaching and
learned it.
learning. That's
Yeah.
what's so frustrating with this, is we're
But who follows
we're
that
creating
up?
a scheme to cover ourselves, and we're not focused on
And I think that's the
learning
bottom
outcomes.
line,
And
and
it
this is where
creates
my
a lot of work.
frustration lies, is we are so hyper-focused on, and I'm talking kids, I'm talking teachers, I'm talking parents, I'm talking the community. We're so hyper-focused on the grade that we've lost the learning. So when you talk about kids going on to college and not being prepared, it's not that they're not being prepared because they don't have, it's because we were so hyper focused on the grades that we never taught them how to learn on their own and to do it independently. That's the reality of it. We're prepping kids for things that don't even exist. If we are not preparing kids to be independent thinkers, to be able to learn on their own, to be able to self-reflect, to be able to communicate, to be innovative, then we're preparing kids to be living in your basement for the rest of their lives.
You do have a really nice basement. I live in a basement.
I'm sorry. I
Have
guess
room for three, Andrew?
I am. I'm super passionate about it, and I'm
living
really
the dream right now.
This is, off topic, but the school that I work in, I was leaving the other day and I was looking at some of the things that the kids had done and put on the walls. And outside a third grade classroom, in little third grade, pseudo cursive, when they think they can write in cursive, but they really can't. It was a little poster decorated with flowers that obviously a kid had made, and it said, it doesn't matter how you did. What matters is what you know. And I was like, wow, that just sums it up.
Not in my house. You need a 3.0 for your discount on your car insurance. That's it.
Teenage boys.
You have to get a 3.0.
I mean, in fairness, for my own child in middle school, right? I'm concerned about the grade because I'm getting an automatic alert from Power School when a grade goes down. Well, why did it go down? What happened? And I'm questioning her that day. So I'm very focused on the grade because that's what I see.
I wish I got those. I get the tardy.
I turned those off.
Tardy.
And I get that, but I would challenge you guys to rephrase it to, okay, your grade went down. Why? What are you not learning?
What didn't you hand in?
Yeah, what didn't you turn in?
That's
the
what
question.
usually my question. Yeah. What are you missing?
Yep. There will be a conversation. Michael went down to a
So
B
we'll say
plus.
6 hours next Wednesday instead of 5.
Are we getting food?
So I should bring a cot, sleeping bag for my
thinking pizza in
office.
between the two.
Pizzas, yeah.
But I think that points out something very interesting too, is that that shift from, what didn't you turn in? Your grade went down because you didn't turn it in an assignment, not to what didn't you know? Like, why didn't you perform well on that assignment?
Well, my son got a 0 on assignment because he handed in 1 minute late. He's handed it in at 11:31 in college. Because she's not used to deadlines.
Mrs. Hirschberg's got to pass next week.
She's gonna go anyway. She'll be at the parent one, too. Oh, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Individual emails?
That's fine. However you guys choose, I can take it either way. Individual
I do
emails.
like Andrew's comments starting like, we have to do competencies.
I think we need
Yeah.
the history of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I will switch those slides, absolutely.
And what did you say? There was something else that you said. I don't know, differentiating
I
between
have
competencies and
a
the
few
grading
notes
part.
that have been,
Awesome.
but again, any feedback, I've revised it for the last 3 days pretty consistently, so.
Will you be at the meeting with staff, or is that just between staff and the
I'll be
board?
at the meeting with staff.
You're not giving this, are you?
No,
Oh,
but
good.
they are, they're getting a version of this at the PD day, the day before.
Okay.
Because what came back in the feedback was that we have teachers in the district who don't feel comfortable with competencies at all.
So just to bring anybody watching up to speed on this conversation, the board is meeting next Wednesday with staff of the
Yep.
district from 2
2:15 to 4.
followed by the community part of competencies starting at 5 at Campbell in the library.
And I want to clarify that the staff piece is, and we need to put that out to staff because there's a lot of confusion. Because it's a big open time so teachers can come in, ask their questions, talk to you guys or myself about what their concerns are.
It's not sit down.
It's
here,
not
yeah.
a sit down, a sit and get. And I think there's some teachers that were confused as to what it is.
I will get that communicated so that they understand it. It is like rolling drop-in commentary.
And I did ask, I put a survey out to staff ahead of time, like a survey. It's basically, if you have questions, send them to, if you think of something now, send it to me ahead of time so that we at least have it for anybody that might not be able to make it.
And I don't want you to think that nobody responded to the email that we got. So Mary and I met with the association yesterday, so both Patrick and Stacy, and we talked our way through the purpose of, the teacher session, the purpose of the parent session, the way we're gonna sort of chronicle, because to me, I think we wanna categorize big takeaways from those, and then we can share that information so that, parents are saying this, teachers are saying this. So we'll capture it all. It's not a secret, it's just,
They both have
we
different.
know why we
And
set up the way
that's
we
what
do.
I said, that is what I said
outcomes
to
they want,
Patrick,
yeah.
is that I want to be able to hear both
Sides.
Clearly.
Yeah.
clearly, and the needs are not going to be the same, and the comments and the questions and the concerns are not going to be the same. So
Agreed.
I think giving the staff a voice with the board, with myself, with Mike is really important, and then to give the parents the same.
And I think in fairness, when Patrick left this room that night, we had a plan, and it
did.
changed later, and it wasn't communicated.
No.
Yep.
And so that was maybe a miss on my part, I'm not sure. I didn't even enter into my thinking. I'm like, okay, we got a plan, I know what to do, but he heard a different plan, so that's why we got that email.
But they
So
were,
it's- we're in a good
and
spot.
we had a good
But we had a
conversation with it
conversation about
yesterday.
it, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
All right, thank you very much.
Community comment. Community comment? Community? Any comments?
No, actually, this is the first time I've attended. I'm Mike Anaskovich. We've chatted about that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And can you state your address for the record?
Yeah, 20th Century Lane.
Okay, I know where that is.
Oh, now she knows.
Do you want to come up?
Yeah, could you come up and,
Oh, you read them up?
Sure. Mike had some questions, and he sent an email to me, and I think to Tina, and I welcomed all of his questions. I asked him if he wanted to reach out to Mike, and he just wants to learn more about what we do.
Perfect.
thanks for coming.
Well, then you can listen, or you can.
No, this has been, it's been good. It's been fun. It was some good conversation. We've been here since '85, long time. Both of my kids went through the
Alvern?
school system here. And, we were generally pleased with the, the experience. And, now it's just like I feel like I want to get more up to date on what's going on. I want to understand.
Are you on
because of all the
Facebook?
what's that?
Are you on Facebook?
I am.
You are on Facebook, so you see all different stuff coming, and it must be
Some
confusing.
true, some not true.
I
Kinda
need to
lose touch
I need
when
to
your
start
kids aren't in the
paying more
district.
attention.
Well, good for you. Civics
Yeah,
minded?
I'm surprised I'm the only one here.
I'm not.
I'm not.
There's a lot, yeah.
Fun is not the word I would.
Look, you're getting all our attention.
But my one question for you:
Sure.
do your kids live in your basement?
They don't.
All right, we're good.
That's amazing.
There's hope. Okay.
No, this has been really good. Like the whole formative thing, that was never a thing when I went to school. It was like you learn the things you need to learn, then you have to take a test on them at the end.
Sit down, be quiet, and absorb all this information being talked
Yeah.
at you.
I like the idea of formative. It's not just what you learn, but how you learn, and will that take you to a place that is perhaps more in tune with your strengths that you wouldn't otherwise get exposed to? I don't know, but it sounds really interesting to me. I get the whole question about grading. Because like it or not, we still live in that kind of a summative, as you put it, summative world, which is pretty black and white. But no, this has been good. I'm glad I attended, and it was
Positive stuff.
good subject matter, and
You're welcome anytime.
All right.
yeah. So the community thing, that's next week.
next Wednesday night.
Is that when you have more public
We hope
Hoping.
so.
Generally,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Tell your friends.
It's at 5 o'clock.
Is this broadcast live?
Yes.
Yes, it's on YouTube if you can't, I don't
Oh,
have
okay,
cable, I have to
okay.
watch it on YouTube.
Okay. And the materials, are the materials that are presented, are they available online as well?
On our
They're on the school board
Okay,
page.
everything's there.
If
Okay.
you go to the town site, it has a planning board, you can find out we're getting a Dunkin' Donuts.
Uh-huh.
And then you
Yeah,
can find,
I
and the
saw
gas
that.
station, interesting, and then we have all the other meetings, just for fun, if you wanna watch a meeting or two.
No, thank you. Thank you for asking.
I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, glad to be here. Yeah.
Closed
You going
community.
to community input or community comment?
I'm gonna, correspondence?
Yeah.
Where I'm gonna talk for 5 minutes?
Correspondence, yeah.
Yep.
I know, yeah, I'm gonna.
I have to
Take a little
take,
break, too.
I have to come back too. All right, I'll wait.
Leaving me. Correspondence, February 15th, 2023. Jan Sullivan circulated the school deliberative minutes. February 15th, 2023, Mr. Cutter circulated email correspondence regarding the new website. On February 15th, 2023, Mr. Cutter circulated email correspondence with Mr. Totten, our business administrator, regarding questions he had on the manifest that Mr. Totten answered. Also on February 15th, Ms. Hirschberger circulated a document entitled School Successes for the board's review. On February 17th, Jan Sullivan circulated minutes from the February 15th school board meeting. On February 17th, 2023, Denise McHugh, a community member, sent an email wondering why we are pushing forward with, quote, Litchfield version of competency. Should we pause and pivot to something else? And disagrees with cumulative finals as they do not prepare students for final exams at college. On February 18th, Mr. Cutter emailed the board with a question regarding inclusion of a payment for the solar panels in the 2023-2024 budget. Dr. Jetty responded and Mr. Cutter responded back. On February 20th, 2023, Dr. Jetty emailed to the board advising that we need to repost the 2023 warrant articles, or the warrant, as the budget committee vote changed on Article 3, so it had to be reposted and updated. February 20th, Anissa Swanson, community member, emailed requesting that the school board meet with teachers to discuss competency-based grading. On February 20th, Dr. Jetty emailed the board, copying the board on a response to Kate Silver, an LMS student, who had concerns about recent enforcement of the dress code as it relates to Uggs being called slippers. Dr. Jetty advised Ms. Silver that the dress code committee will be meeting soon. On February 20th, Mr. Cutter emailed the board requesting information about the purchase of a new sign for LMS and if it was budgeted as part of the Phase 2 LMS project. Dr. Jetty responded and provided background information. On February 20th, 2023, Dr. Jetty copied the board on a response to Danielle Cronin, a community member, regarding UGG slides and the dress code. Dr. Jetty also advised her that the dress code committee would be meeting shortly. On February 21st, I don't know this person, Heidi Hollyung, a community member, emailed with a concern that the preschool space is too small and asked that it be reconsidered.
She's from a different, she was from,
Arizona.
South Carolina or something. I
Arizona.
responded to her, I was like, I think
She
you
was
might
from
have emailed
Arizona.
the wrong school
Yeah,
board.
just-
Regardless, it was there.
But just to clarify,
Yeah.
it was not a concern with our preschool.
Right.
It was another Litchfield, Arizona, and she
Okay.
Googled and got the wrong
I thought
place.
it was about
This is-
seeing the drawings.
This has happened multiple times,
Yes.
that I get these weird phone messages. I called the woman back, and I'm like, who are you trying to reach? And she said, Litchfield, Arizona. I said, okay, now I feel better.
Yeah.
knowing
Because aren't
why
they
I'm totally out of
602?
the loop.
What are they, 602
problem
instead of
is-
603?
Except the
Litchfield,
problem
Canada,
is with
Litchfield.
cell phones now, people aren't paying attention to the
Yeah.
area codes. Like 603 used to mean something, it doesn't any longer. So anyway, this is happening more and more. That was,
Regardless, a very far away community. On February 21st, 2023, Ms. Harrison, a board member, emailed the board circulating a draft letter to our representatives and Senator Susie regarding building aid. There were responses from myself, Dr. Jetty, and Mr. Cutter. On February 22nd, Anne Inamorati emailed around circulating the register of checks for the manifest and requesting signatures before vacation. On February 23rd, 2023, Carrie Momney, 7th grade language arts teacher, emailed the board with a reminder about the LMS 7th grade Living Museum event that was held that Friday. On February 24th, 2023, Ms. Harrison sent out the final version of the letter regarding building aid to our town reps and senator. On February 28th, 2023, Dr. Jetty emailed the board advising that the voter guide had gone to press. On February 28th, 2023, Dr. Jetty emailed the board circulating data regarding students from Kalawa Circle, which was the last big development in Litchfield that has 10 students that are in either LMS or GMS, none at CHS, as this could be predictive of students in the new construction that's at the former location of the horse farm. On March 3rd, Barb, Bill,
Lowski.
thank you, circulating the March 8th, 2023 school board agenda. On March 3rd, Ann and Marati circulating the manifest. On March 6th, Dr. Jetty circulated a calendar invite for the teacher forum on competency assessment with the board and admin. Also on March 6th, Dr. Jetty emailed circulating a calendar invite for the parent forum on competency assessment with the board and admin. And March 7th, Patrick Keefe, teacher and LEA president, emailed with concerns about separate forums and wondering if it should be one community forum to collaborate, but that question was just answered. And that, my friends, is our correspondence.
Was the dress code correspondence sent to the board?
I didn't see that one.
No.
Not either.
Oh, was that not sent to the full board?
You're the rep, so
Oh,
you
sorry,
got it
that was
as-
to me. I'll circulate it to everyone though.
Okay, it just piqued my interest because I know it's on the agenda. We talked about it at our last meeting. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
recall seeing something.
Sorry, nope, I thought, whenever I see, to me, I usually don't include those.
And Ms. Harrison, did you receive any response from our representatives?
I have not.
Okay, thank you.
And that is correspondence.
All right, should we do our,
Well, is this a good time to talk about, did you want to talk about the misinformation that was out there about, from our representative?
oh, I thought we were
Related
gonna
to
do
that
that.
letter?
I'm gonna hit on
Later?
that in
Yeah.
my comments, and
Thank
maybe
you.
we can
We
expand
do
on
have
it.
another thing we'd like to do. We would like to
Acknowledge.
Mrs. Hirschberger for her time on the board with our Triple E Award, Empowering Excellence in Education, Certificate of Achievement. It is awarded to Tara Hirschberger in recognition of outstanding achievement.
E for excellent.
Oh, you're welcome.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, thank you very much.
And you're getting a picture.
Want to stand in between
Us.
and?
Oh, I don't
sorry.
get it.
Well,
Yes, you do.
excellent, thank you.
I have my Disney photo pass smile on.
Yeah. Comment, hold on.
We appreciate you and your years of service to the board.
How many years has it been?
Thank you. It's been 5 years. Is this
5
an
years.
appropriate time for me to? Yes.
You were 2 years stiff?
Yes.
So actually, I just would like to say a couple things, not very long. Thank you to all. Thank you to the town for giving me an opportunity to serve on the school board. My first term was only 2 years because I originally filled a position left vacant when someone else left before their term expired. Because of this, when I was reelected, I made the commitment to complete my second term, the full 3 years, not knowing the pandemic was around the corner. And despite other significant family and school-related concerns yet to surface. So, I'll leave it at that, but I truly feel honored to have served in this role and wish everyone here around the table and in the school district all the best moving forward. So thank you.
You're not crying, are you?
No,
You are not crying. You should be happy tears.
I know,
You're gonna miss
I was
us.
afraid of public speaking in high school, so sometimes it gets me. So,
Can I just say
Yeah.
a couple of words? I just wanted to, I was going to say this in school board comments, but since we're all doing it now, it's just been a pleasure working with you on the board these past 5 years, and you've brought a different perspective. You've brought an eagerness to learn and a curiosity and a desire to have your questions answered, and a different eye looking at our policies. And I think that's just been, it's been wonderful to have that perspective on the board.
And your strength is the budget committee. You were amazing
Yeah,
on the
thank you
budget
for doing
committee.
that this
That
year.
is a time commitment in addition to this time commitment.
And good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yes, I appreciate that.
We will miss you all.
Happy tears.
Thank you. Yes.
You can come visit anytime and sit
So
next to our
I
new
thought
friend
I would
Mike.
have my Wednesdays off, and now we have a parent forum next Wednesday. So thank you very much.
I'm not done yet.
No free Wednesdays.
All right, where are we? We are on reports. Superintendent?
Yeah.
Where's that?
Yeah, so
Oh, wait
I
a
think we've talked enough about
I'm
March
wishful thinking.
15th. The only other piece is that I did, apparently there's a basketball game that evening.
It is the faculty.
And so I talked to Josh, and he's gonna push it back to, they had a start time of 5:30, I think.
Huh?
They're gonna push it back to 6 o'clock. So I said, give us
I
an hour.
wanna go.
Give us an hour to do our piece, and
Yeah.
then we'll see where it lands,
We're
but
what time is our thing?
I didn't even know
we're at
about
5
that.
o'clock.
5 to 7.
It was on Facebook. It's a senior project by
Yeah.
Castellano, Christina Castellano.
Okay, 5 to 7. I'll
Anything
repost
else
that
on March
page.
15th the board need from me?
I skipped that whole part. Thinking it was-
So,
I didn't hear that.
is there anything else the board needs from me on the 15th? I think we've talked about it enough. I just want to make sure we're set. You know, and a reminder to all of us, I keep saying to Mary, the purpose of these is to inform and listen, inform and listen. So we just want to make sure that we're focused on that as we sit down that night. Dress code update, so there is a committee that's been set up. It's the first meeting is the administrators and me and Heidi. Because I want to get the administrative perspective, like what are the concerns we're hearing, what is it we want to get addressed, map out a timeline, and then we'll invite a larger audience. Last time we had students and we had parents, and we will get to that. But for right now, we just need to kind of kick off where we are and highlight what needs to be addressed from our eyes. Enrollment, you have the enrollment update like every month. It hasn't shifted and changed all that much. I will tell you that you're looking at these numbers that bring us through the end of February, but we have had a lot of enrollments over February break. People moved. And so I can tell you that there's at least 6 students coming into these numbers this week. So just be aware March is going to look a little different than it has all year, where we basically are 1 fewer student than we opened with, but there was a lot of stuff that happened over the last week, so be ready for that.
Any concerns on the numbers between K and first, given that it's like 20 kids or so less? Like if I look at kindergarten, right, I see 67 as of this point under registration, but we currently have 86.
Yep, and if
That's
you
5
go to the tab called 22 template, actually it went the other way. We had fewer who came into first grade. So is that accurate? No.
Right.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up in my head. So I'm not sure about that. It may impact the number of first grade classrooms, but I think even then we're over. I think it's still going to require the 4 based on the guidelines.
Definitely a 4.
Yeah, so the class sizes may be a little bit smaller if we don't pick up students coming from other kindergartens.
Oop, missed that part.
It was a notable difference between what we're thinking incoming versus what's current, so.
And that number has done this. It's been interesting.
It is.
If you look at the 5-year trend, and maybe I can have that added in, it actually has been kind of a
It's
roller
never
coaster.
predictable.
So
Yeah.
There's always less minute too.
Right.
So, I
Right.
appreciate that.
budget infographic. So that document was produced. So the board had actually, or members of the board maybe, had asked to get a 1-pager that sort of explains the operating versus default. So that document was produced last week. It's been shared internally in the office. Some corrections have been made for it to update it and make sure it's as clear as possible. And so you are looking at the almost final version, but the goal is to get this out in 2 formats. I'm going to email it directly to our families because I can access that. So you'll notice that it doesn't take a stance. It doesn't say please support or what have you. It's really written from a neutral position, just explaining what happens. And then it will go out on the Facebook. So that'll be our way to get it into social media. And I'm sure that once it's on Litchfield and shared with 3 schools, it won't be long until it's on What's Up Litchfield and other places. So it should spread pretty quickly once we get it out there. But I am looking for feedback. If there's something about that that you react to, Tara's already
Tara
said.
has
Hang
it.
on, let's see if anybody else chimes in on it.
Oh, this
but-
guy?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. I already share mine.
Yeah, that guy creeps me out.
I didn't love, yeah, I just didn't love the visual, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's another.
I was trying to show that it was supported by both groups.
Oh,
Can you put it
no.
But
on
if that's not
Is
the
it
right
up there?
picture,
Can you put it up
yeah,
there
I
so
have-
Mike can see it?
I have put it
He's
Put a
part of
green
the
check
audience.
mark, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly
Check
what I
mark.
said. A
Yeah.
checkbox, but I get how he was
Yeah.
going for the 2 thumbs
This
up.
is a guy that we think,
I don't think he is. I mean, he seems nice enough.
He's a little too animated.
Yeah.
he's someone you'd see
Nobody's that
next to you.
excited to vote. My other feedback was that bullet point 4, what may happen. The first bullet point, 80% of our budget is personnel. And then you jump to the default number can't be met or can't be. It can't be done. That doesn't. It doesn't.
Achieved.
Yeah,
Oh,
by
achieved.
cutting stuff. So I think it's too much of a jump. I think, you know.
I think stuff people
what-
could read as staff.
What does that actually
Oh.
mean, though? What does that bullet mean? The default number can't be done by cutting stuff.
Right.
It's in
other
response
20%.
to, so what we were trying to respond to was the commentary at deliberative, that there's $5 million worth of stuff that you can cut. So yes, it's a $25 million budget, 80% is personnel, 20% are people, I'm sorry, 20 million are people, 5 million is stuff cut there. And we're saying, but the 5 million includes fuel,
Right.
lighting.
Right. So I
Things
think
that
you
you
need to
can't
say
cut.
that. I think you need to say, we can't operate on the default budget without cutting staff members and cutting programs.
That's stuff.
So that's the last bullet. It says that in the
Right.
last bullet,
Yeah.
but I will revise bullet 2
It's
for
just not,
clarity.
it's not a,
And it says a default budget will impact students, which I
I
think
mean,
is.
does it make the default number can't be
Potentially
achieved by cutting the remaining 20%?
Or just the default budget cannot be achieved without cutting staff.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like the cannot, but double
Right.
negative.
That,
In order to meet the default budget,
We
would
will
need-
have to
we will
reduce
have to
staff.
reduce
Staff.
staff.
I almost think what may happen should be relabeled to the potential of a default budget. Right?
The potential result of
Yeah.
the default budget.
If
Yeah, if you,
default
instead of
passes,
4, you say.
if the operating budget fails.
What
I
may
never
happen?
liked
What
the
is this
what
actually
happened
talking about?
either, So I'm glad.
Yeah.
I mean, impact of default budget, maybe?
Yeah, something simple, like, narrow it down to a
Yeah.
few words, but something to that effect.
I think that's good.
I never liked that phrase.
Yeah,
may
because it's like,
happen, That's why you
Yeah.
need more
and
people.
it makes everything within that questionable.
I also,
Might have
well,
80% of our staff.
here's the thing that I
Have to
keep
cut.
cautioning our team. I had members of the team who wanted to say, we're gonna do this, we're gonna implement user fees. I said, that's not our decision. The board has to decide that. So, we can
Thanks.
put out there that this may happen. That's how it ended up saying what may happen. But, so we have to be careful how we put this out, because the next board may say, we're not doing user fees, you're gonna do it in a different way.
I
So,
would even say 80% of our budget is personnel. Instead of number 3, we must meet all contractual obligations. So
yeah.
again, to get rid of the negative, say we must meet all of our contractual obligations.
Keep it in
Then
the
get into
positive,
the,
yeah.
you're gonna help me with this tomorrow.
Sounds good.
just replay the meeting.
I'm just kidding, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's on loop.
Also, I don't necessarily agree at this point, because the board hasn't made any decisions, nor should we, right? But under the default budget, the second bullet, the default budget would lead to further reductions to staffing programs and projects. Well, we haven't made any decisions on that. We
May,
may anticipate, think, but we don't know that. That's
I
coming,
think we do know that, though.
there's no
We don't
way.
lead to cutting something, we just don't know what
we
it is.
don't, we don't know what, and I don't want,
Lot, something.
I don't want our staff to automatically read this and say, well,
I think they already understand
They
the
do.
implications.
You
They've
went
already-
over this
that's
with the
already been
staff, the
communicated to the
possible
staff.
ramifications of a default budget.
I visited all the staff meetings and discussed what could happen.
So I don't want to take the power away from you guys, but there's no way to go down 792,000 without cutting positions, it'd be more than one. I wish it wasn't, but it
Right.
would.
We all wish it wasn't.
We already know the list of 13 positions that were impacted to get to 772. So it's pretty clear that it's at least, if it's all people, it's 13. I don't think it will be, but,
That's
and
insane.
so we said it really, we see it as a combination of those, but you can't take it all out of projects because you don't have that much in projects.
So then should it read programs and or projects?
And/or.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It reads to me matter of fact when I don't know that any decisions have been made on this.
Things are gonna be cut and it's gonna hurt across the board.
Is there one of those items in particular that you think would not be impacted?
I don't know.
And that's the reason for the and/or?
I guess I'm optimistic that we can figure something out without reducing our staff. I don't know what that is.
But that's 80% of the budget.
Again, I don't know what that is. I don't have the answers tonight. Because that directly impacts our kids.
So would just adding a slash or address the concern
It-
that you
it-
have?
It might, that's why I said it, right? Because it
I
could
don't
be,
think
it could be any one of these or all of them.
Yeah, I don't think that's a significant,
We can do that.
that's easy.
All right, anything else on the infographic? Okay, so the video,
I don't wanna hear any criticism. It was a long day.
have you all had the chance?
On the
I
video?
haven't watched the
I have
video
not watched
yet.
the video.
You want it, it's less than 5 minutes, we can do it right now. And to be honest, there's not a ton of feedback.
When was this video link added?
Today? It was added today.
Yeah, because I
It was just done, like, I found out what,
printed this out last night. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't see
hour.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cause
Well, I mean,
I
we
mean,
should
I-
approve it before it goes wherever it's going.
fine.
So let's take 5 minutes and view it now. But honestly,
have to
editing
vote.
this is gonna be a challenge. You have to think holistically on it. Is this the message that we wanna get out? And it's either send the video or don't send the video, because, I don't know how I learned video. I learned how to stitch
No, you
together and
didn't.
create
Your
this.
daughter did it.
So do we pull it up on the screen and can
Yeah.
we hear it, or?
There we go, you ready?
See it.
So I was having a facial when I was told this, I had to come, so it was, I didn't, I didn't do it with the rest of the team and do multiple spots. Oh, nice music selection.
Our team has been meeting since September to develop a budget for the next school year that both meets student needs and is responsible to Litchfield taxpayers.
Developing an operating budget focused on achieving our goals has led to many hard decisions. In the end, we were able to gain the support of the school board and budget committee while also maintaining high-quality educational programs, attracting and retaining great teachers and great staff, and staying on track with repairs and upgrades to our aging facilities so our students can have a better learning environment.
At Campbell High School, our mission is to work with all stakeholders to produce graduates who exhibit character, courage, respect, and responsibility in all aspects of their life. Our challenge over the years is to stay on this mission while having to reduce elective offerings to our students, reducing our staffing in the library, and reducing our staffing in the front office.
At LMS, our program is designed so our students can do their best. Early in the budgeting process, we made cuts as much as possible to the materials and resources that go with educating our students. As we face declining enrollment, we have already reduced our teaching staff both at 7th and 8th grade, and also absorbed an additional position by reducing the staffing here in our main office. We've worked hard to provide a lean and responsible budget while doing our best to maintain programs and opportunities for our students to be able to learn at their best.
At GMS, our vision statement says that we thrive. The T in this statement means that we target resources and practices to maximize potential for all. This is reflected in our budgeting process as we closely monitor class sizes and overall student enrollment. We've created a lean, student-driven budget with classes that are at or near their maximum size.
To develop a responsible operating budget, we have already reduced our budget by over $772,000 over the past 2 years. This was done to help control costs and be responsive to our taxpayers. Warrant Article 1 presents a responsible operating budget that was created through a rigorous review process at the school level, at the district level, at the school board level, and finally, at the level of the budget committee. At each level, there were reductions made to the operating budget.
Article 1 is unanimously supported by the school board, recommended by the budget committee, and includes cost increases that are driven by factors beyond our control. The increases in salaries and benefits were approved warrant articles on last year's ballot to keep us competitive within our region as we attract and retain great faculty and staff. Just like at home, energy costs for electricity, oil, and propane have escalated beyond our expectations and are resulting in budgetary increases. Voting yes on Article 1 will adopt the operating budget that protects our staff and our programs and meets the needs of our students.
If Article 1 fails and we have to implement default budget, we will have very hard decisions to make here at GMS. With most expenses being driven by student enrollment and with class sizes already on the large side, that means these cuts will have to be realized through classroom supports, elective programs, and co-curricular activities.
We'll also have difficult decisions to make at LMS if voters do not support the recommendations of the school board and budget committee. Further reducing the budget means we'll have to cut into our people and programs. We can't do that without impacting our students and the programs we're able to offer them each and every day.
If a no vote on Article 1 forces us into the default budget, deep staffing cuts will also be happening here at Campbell. In addition to these cuts, we will need to increase revenue and may consider enacting a district-wide user fee when a child signs up for clubs, co-curriculars, or athletics. Depending on the activity and the family, these fees may equal or exceed the tax increase associated with the operating budget.
So, what can you do?
Vote.
Have your voice heard by voting.
Vote.
Every eligible Litchfield resident can vote for the school budget and warrant. Please come to the polls Tuesday, March 14th from 7 in the morning until 7 in the evening at Campbell High School. You guys were all on vacation. You left me here. You left me here.
I could have gotten Mickey Mouse to do a plug with me.
Oh my God. You know how many takes that took? I was giggling with his daughter the whole time.
So is that within the guidelines of, like, I agree we have to communicate what happens if, and I think that all was very clear and it was very well said. Coming from the district, though, are we towing the line between campaigning or just getting the information out?
That video does not cross the threshold of electioneering. At no point in that does it say, vote yes. At no point does it say, we urge you to support the operating budget. So electioneering is advocating for a vote.
Right.
And what that is, the purpose of this is to say, there's a question in front of the voters and it's up to the will of the voters. And, you know, voting yes supports the operating budget as recommended by two groups who've spent hours on it. Voting no means a default. And you'll even notice the language is very carefully crafted. We may consider this. We'll have to make some cuts. I mean, $792,000. I know I'm talking to people who understand what that means.
That's a house.
Londonderry did this, right?
Yeah.
We actually modeled it on the Londonderry video. And the first thing we did when we sat down to begin planning this is we watched the Londonderry video. And we stopped it after each person. What did we like? What didn't we like? And there were points where we're like, that might have gone a little too far, so we don't want to do that.
So you backed up.
Yep. So our feeling is that this does not, you know, so electioneering is when a hired person, you know, so a principal, me, an elected person is advocating, and actually Liz has more latitude because she is elected, so that she has a little bit more latitude in what she's able to say. But we still stayed within the guardrails, in my opinion. Did anybody see anything that was troubling to them?
My hair.
Not me, but, and I know, I don't know your ability to edit, but I think it would be useful for people who are not familiar with the school system to have the names of who you are
So-
and the positions.
I was gonna ask
So
if that could be done.
Let me say that We Video, I spent easily an hour trying to figure out how to do that, and it's not easy. And we think we know maybe how to do it, and it's gonna
you,
require
Emma?
several more
You know how to
hours
do
of
it?
input
I
on it.
haven't used video in a long time. Probably since my freshman year.
Do we have teachers?
Well, maybe
that
when
might have-
emailing it out, you could just put some context around it,
Yeah.
you know, these people,
Could maybe,
you know.
We
Jordan
also
do it
thought,
for you?
I don't know,
And each of the principals do say at CHS, at LMS, so I went back
Jen
and
was
looked at
had all the
that.
blue shirts on
Yeah.
and the
Jake
blue
had
background, red.
sweatshirt.
we all dressed,
So, but people
I
won't
did
know
it.
who
We actually
you are
picked our wardrobe.
necessarily. Yeah.
we did all of that very purposefully. If you look
Yeah.
at it, you know, Dan's got the griffin with the orange shirt on.
You've got the
Right.
district
Everything was
logo.
purposeful in terms of the branding
Yeah.
piece of it.
Not me.
But,
I was
but you're right,
bland.
I wanted to say Dan Mitchell, principal
Yeah.
of
Yes.
DMS, and I could not figure out how to do it.
Right, right,
And so,
Check with our tech integrator.
yes.
I think at the end of the day, you only have so much time between now and
Yeah, that's
Tuesday.
right.
Get it out there.
In terms of a yay or nay, Emma, I
Yeah.
think it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we need to vote? I think it's fine.
I don't think we need to vote. If somebody was sitting here saying that we shouldn't be doing this, now's the time to say that, but I'm not hearing that from anybody,
I
so.
think it helps clarify the difference between the two.
I,
The fact-
I don't, it's the first time seeing it. I didn't have an opportunity to look at it prior, but I don't, nothing stood across to me as being, no, absolutely not. Like, I don't mind the messaging. Yours looked very prescripted, where the others were just.
Because I just got it in front of me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. I mean, it's no big deal, right? So.
It was a bad day. Bad day.
Yeah, I mean, I learned a ton of things about making a video like this, and so, you know, would come at things a little bit differently in the future, but we had to get the thing done. And it was on vacation week. This was last Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's a week ago.
Facial.
And so, all right, then we will
Thank you for putting all of that together, and thank you, Liz, for doing that.
plan to see it. It's going to be out there. So my last comment is, I just want to talk a little bit about Representative Bohm's legislative update, because in his legislative update, he shows a slide, and the slide is sort of a timeline of when schools will qualify for building aid.
We all saw it.
There's a lot
Yeah.
wrong with that timeline, and I want to say this publicly, and, you know, I would say it to Ralph if he was here. So, the first thing that's incorrect about it is that the amount that each school asked for hasn't been determined that that's what they're going to qualify for yet. So we asked for $35.5 million in our application, or whatever the number was, and Litchfield qualifies at the 30% rate, so you do 30% times that number, and it says $10 million is your building aid. But here's the thing, the state is going through that $35 million ask, and they're determining, are we building the proper size school? You know, if we had asked for, you know what would be nice, maybe someday people are gonna move to Litchfield, so we're just gonna add an extra classroom in everywhere. We're gonna overbuild a school. They're not gonna give us building aid on classrooms that we don't need. Or if we say, oh gosh, we really want a high school level science lab in our elementary school, twice the size, so the kids have a little more room to run around and explore stuff. And the state will say, no, you get so many square feet per, and we're not gonna give you building aid on that. If you wanna build that, that's on you, but you're not gonna get the building aid. And the reason I'm saying that is because Concord's building a $180 million middle school, in my opinion, is going to be oversized. In Kyle's opinion, is going to be oversized. So if you take 180 million and you multiply it by 40%, and you say they're getting 70% or 70 million building aid, that has not been determined yet. And it was presented as if they qualified for 70 million,
The whole
and that
amount.
is not true. So I have asked the state, when are we going to get the qualified number? Because we know they've asked for extra information from us. We've provided additional information so that they can calculate that. And what I was told by Amy Clark, who heads that division at the DOE, is that we'll have that number by the end of March. And so we may not be getting 10 million because we may only qualify for 9 million. I can almost guarantee you will see a number far less than 70 million for Concord. And that's important because that sucks up the pool. We know that. But if their number is, let's say it's 30 million, that's a big game changer in terms of where Litchfield falls right behind it, right? Falling behind 30 million is very different than falling behind 70 when there's only 50 million available. So that to me was a miss in the way it was presented because it assumed that that was a done deal and it's not a done deal. All they were was ranked as the fourth neediest and we're the fifth neediest. Now the question is how much will each school qualify for? So that's huge.
Also, in part B of that, right, is every town ahead of us may not approve.
Right.
Yeah, their voters may not approve it.
So part B, so Kyle, our architect, is the architect for Monadnock. So he knows exactly where Monadnock is, which they're ahead of us. They have a proposal going forward this year on the warrant. Concord hasn't even bought a piece of land yet. They can't even decide, are we going to renovate or not renovate? Are we going to build on site where Runlet currently is, or are we going to move it to another location?
They're not showing forward progress. Why would they get aid before us?
It's a question. It's a question. I went to Rochester, so Rochester's the number 2 school. I went to their website and I said, let me read their warrant. Let me see what's on there. Well, you're talking about a city council. It's a whole different way of approving projects. But what I found was, hey, Rochester, we want to build a school. Does anybody have a piece of land that they think would be ideal? We'd like to talk to you. That's the stage that they're at, okay? So are they going to turn from that stage right now to a proposal next year? Who knows?
Well, this year, this March, right?
Well,
Is Rochester?
yeah, so they have nothing on the warrant this year. And will they be able to produce a bond article by next March? Because they'll buy land, size the school, the whole 9 yards. I don't know the answer to that. But again, the assumption in Ralph's, to Tara's exact point, is that Rochester is getting that money. They do not appear to be ready to plug ahead. And then Colebrook that was a whole different, I can't figure out where Colebrook is. So I think we have to wait and see what actually happens next week. So what I'd like to do is give the board an update. I think we wait for 2 updates. What happened in Colebrook, Rochester, Monadnock, Concord, and Litchfield? Did we get the land, right? So we need to know that about the 5 schools. And then by the end of the month, when the state says, here's the amount you qualify for, we have to redo the math and see where we land in that. The next thing is that the third thing he didn't understand is that, so the next biennium, the money, assuming the legislature funds it the same way, we sort of hold our spot. We're then number 2. And it is possible, if Concord's number comes in lower, that it'll fund the 2. So we may be well positioned for March of 25.
And he said it won't happen before 2027, 28, yeah.
No, he had 28, 29.
29, yeah.
Right.
It's a big difference.
And again, I'm trying to interpret his, if he means the 28, 29 school year, he means voting in March of 29. And we're way ahead of that curve, way ahead. So,
the other information he keeps referring to is that we have the plans to build on the LMS site, and why don't we just build there? But we've gone through extensive processes with the architect and with surveying companies, and we come to the determination that that's not possible or wise at this point.
I'm going to be a little bit more candid and direct to Mr. Boehm, right?
Please do.
It's an extreme disappointment to, I think, the town. You're doing the town a disservice by putting out false information.
Yes.
I have not publicly spoken against you and your work, but I was extremely disappointed by your video. The falsities and the claims are just that, false. I would expect a representative to represent the town, not just your personal views, and you continue to represent your personal views, which I find completely unacceptable.
And not responding to any correspondence from us, who are the voice of the students of town. No email returns, nothing. We've asked them to come.
I think I copied the board on the communication. So I'm trying to answer the question about the plans, because he has said several times that when he was on the board in the 2000s, that they spent a lot of money developing the plans, and the plans exist. I shared the spreadsheet. Michelle went through and recreated how much money was spent each year, how much money went to Harriman Associates, who was the architect of record. But remember, the guy worked for 5 years, and it cost $800,000 worth of studies.
Right.
Oh, go back and study this now, go back and study this now, go back and study this now. And he did. He kept doing everything the town asked him to do. But all it produced is a simple schematic diagram of what the school would look like.
And that school is oversized for the population the enrollment that we're facing in the future years. And it's not, considered best practices and the best environment for student learning and achievement anymore.
But that always changes, right?
True, fair, but it was oversized so if we were to rehash those plans, and just pick that up and move it to the new site or build it on LMS land, it wouldn't meet current standards.
No.
And there aren't plans.
There
I mean,
aren't
there are plans.
So what you have seen in the presentation, which is that schematic diagram of the shape of the school with the classrooms divided in, I mean, you have to get a magnifier out to see it, but we have a better diagram of that. You've all seen that. That's all that was produced for the former school proposal. You could not hand that to a construction firm and say, make this, because it doesn't have any of the rest of the construction documents.
Yeah.
And it cost $800,000. He's not wrong that the school district spent a lot of money, but part of it was the studies and the redos. So at any rate, and his other point is that, the site was big enough for 2 schools before, it should be now. It's not. I get that. I get that that's what the town was trying to do at that point in time, but you still have the one McElwain choke point to deal with.
And to be fair, that's what we set out looking at. That was our option A, was to build on that site.
We actually said to Kyle, there's already a plan to do this. This is what we'd like to do. And as he studied it, he's like, I don't know why anybody was proposing to do this.
Yeah.
And he said the wetland impact to build out there would be greater than what we've talked about with the piece of property that we proposed. So, yeah, there's a lot of information that we need to be really clear about with the public and make sure that they understand.
And what is the website? It's Reimagining GMS, right?
Correct.
So if you Google Reimagining GMS, it's the first site that pops up.
Yep, or if you go to our website, the school district website,
Yeah.
down at the bottom under district news, there's a link to it right there. So you can get to it in many ways.
And all of the information is there, the architect's reports, the needs assessment that was done, the videos of the community forums that we've had, the walkthrough of the current GMS site done by the principal. All of that information is there.
The last piece, what's not there is the due diligence report that we had done on the new piece of property.
Oh.
That's on my desk. I'm reading it tomorrow, and we'll be adding that in. But basically, Nobis, who is the civil engineer, has produced a preliminary report on the ability to use that site. And it's favorable. We can do it. They talk about the limitations that we already know about. They talk about the wetland impacting from side to side, but we need the 10 acres up by the road. And it really is a fabulous opportunity to get the school built and protect the rest of that property, because the wetland is going to be the barrier that's going to cause that to occur. So I'll have that due diligence report available for the public on that website. All right. Thank you. Was there anything else on the video that people wanted to?
I apologize to everybody that I sounded scripted.
It's all good.
No, I was talking Ralph's video.
No, I'm apologizing for my video.
All right.
All right, we are on to business and operations. Doug, financial operations update.
So LMS renovations. So February 17th was a pretty cool day at LMS. Andrew was able to show up for that too. Where the students came in, there were some high visibility gear to kind of celebrate the work that North Branch did. They were able to bring back some of the North Branch workers, and the kids lined the halls and kind of definitely clapped for them because North Branch was part of their family for
I
that
heard
year,
they were emotional, some of the guys. So who's the big tall guy?
Oh, yeah, Dylan and
Yeah,
they,
was it awesome, Andrew?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
good to see. Yeah.
so they said they've never had something like that happen
That's
before, and how
fantastic.
they did feel appreciated. So working with North Branch has been positive. We've had some very tough talks with them as we've kind of negotiated contingencies and things like that. Some direct talks, but through that all, it's been respectful, and we do feel that they have our interest in mind, while they keep their own interest in mind as well. So you can see we got and we paid the January invoice, and we have the change order Google Sheet too. There has been the confirmation of the 22,000, which was paid for masonry work to shore up old problems. So that's again above the ceiling line where they had to fill old holes or add lintels to add support. So again, either for fire protection or for support of the structure. Once they saw the problems, they had to fix the problems. So that has been complete for the majority of the school.
That's out of the contingency budget though, right? I mean, that's why we have that contingency.
Again, we don't have North Branch has a contingency. We don't have a contingency. So that, it gets added to the contract, because it's work that, they bid out for work which we asked them to bid out for, work which we said, hey, we want this done to the school. They said, okay, this is how much it's gonna cost. Now, when they went to do the work, they found this additional work, and they can't leave it alone. They have to make it fire code, and they have to make it structurally safe. But that work wasn't known in advance that had to be done. So that gets added to the contract because it wasn't known work. So some of the work which is contingency is if work gets done and then it doesn't get done right, and they have to kind of redo it again, well, we don't have to pay for that redoing of the work. It comes out of the North Branch contingency at that point. So we are moving along with North Branch. They are there a lot less now. The kitchen equipment will be coming into them, and then obviously they'll be bringing back people in after the kids leave, and then we'll do the kitchen work June and July, and hopefully be wrapping up at the beginning of August for that. With a project, and with where things are with projects, there's good and bad. So we heard that the solar probably won't be going on the roof until May now, as they kind of deal with their supply issues as well. No matter when the solar goes on the roof, as soon as July 1st hits, we pay that 97,000 per year, which is really 95,000 per year, for our electricity. So while it would be better for us if they had solar on now, it definitely would be. They also have a need to get solar up as quickly as they can for their own business sake as well. So to get solar done in a more timely manner is a win-win for everyone involved.
How disruptive will that be to the kids in the building?
So one of the things in speaking with Kay is actually this is better. The delay helps us because if you remember last year, the kids said it was like elephants on the roof when the roofers were up there. May is when they're going to be beginning the project, but they're not going to be stomping around on the roof really till summer. So it makes it into what we envisioned, 2 years ago, which was a Summer Slam project that they can get up there and get into it. So it's actually, as awful as it is, because I want to see headway on the solar.
Right.
I feel like it's just been this stall, but this actually is better for teaching and learning.
So when are we forecasting we go live with solar?
They will have it up and going so they'll get everything installed, connected, and tied in over the summer. So for the start of school, it'll be there functioning. The battery storage system will come online in the fall, but remember, the battery storage really is more of a winter type of thing, if I remember the way they play it out correctly. And
It's also a way to kind of work out the demand
the
charges.
demand charges.
So,
But either way, the company is responsible for covering that. So
Yep.
their incentive is to get it installed as fast as possible because, they're paying a higher amount to Eversource if it's going over. So their goal is to buffer it out over the whole year, right? So I don't know if that addresses it, but.
It does. I mean, we're certainly, as a reminder to everyone watching, right, that building now is fully heated and run on electric heat, right? And
Yep.
electricity.
It was very comfortable when I was in there last
Yeah,
week.
it's comfortable, but it's also expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just too bad we can't get the solar up so that we're getting those savings.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. It's,
But
we
it's a
have,
supply chain issue.
It's supply chain issue, it's kind of a timing issue, just in terms of what they're able to get their hands on, so.
and now we're paying, what I'm hearing is we're making a payment, which we've budgeted for, right, but we're making a payment without any realization of the system at that point in time.
How do we pay the 97? Is it monthly installments?
so it's monthly, but we shouldn't be paying first couple months because we have prepaid for stuff that they owe us back. So it's monthly, and at that point, we won't be paying for, obviously, oil, because there's no oil, but we won't also be paying towards Eversource, because we'd be paying directly. They're working with Eversource for the electricity, and we pay them the set amount per year, divided out by 12, and then minus the prepayments that we have already paid.
Speaking of oil, I did see an oil truck today at GMS, and I'm hearing that it was a drain from LMS and a fill at GMS.
Yeah, so a lot of people got to see the oil truck because of the timing of it. So
Oh, is that was the backup?
That was in the backup.
the backup at both schools, I guess. So they were pumping out at LMS when
That's
the,
awesome that you could do that.
Right.
pickup.
So let's just say they were scheduled to come at 9.
They were scheduled.
They came at 11.
Pickup.
And what happened was the truck could not establish a prime to actually suck the oil out of the ground. So they had to keep moving the truck around. And finally, the only way to get the prime established was to block the road. And it's just like, get the oil out of the ground.
Yeah.
at
Then
this
you
point.
brought it
So,
over to GMS.
Yes.
That's
But at
awesome.
So
least we could do that.
5,000 gallons of oil
Wow.
that we relocated, and
Yep, so
so
5,000 clean gallons of oil got relocated. There is still oil in the LMS because we weren't going to take it all down and then sludge and then kind of
Right.
have that impact the heating at
Right.
the elementary school. But yep, 5,000 gallons went over today, which is good.
Good.
So, yep. So,
did you talk about ERV 2?
no, not yet.
If you're going to, I just want to make sure the board knows what we're
Well,
doing.
now I want to know what year.
Yeah.
Please, go ahead.
So ERV is one of the ventilation and heating units that was on the roof that, starting in December, wasn't working properly. And they've gone back and forth with the company. They brought in new compressors and new other parts, and then finally they brought in a brand-new unit. So it is working properly
Great.
now, which is obviously the expectation. And the company's doing an autopsy on it to kind of figure out what happened to it. So there's still a lot of questions out there as far as the practice of the company. We would have preferred if we got a brand-new unit sooner, other than kind of having to do things piecemeal, because that led to kind of more work getting done, as well as led to us using different sources of heat, which weren't as efficient, to make sure that the students and the staff were comfortable in there.
And are we still on the hook for the labor charges to fix the broken unit?
That we're not quite sure as of right now.
We're waiting for the autopsy. So, basically, if you think about the unit, it should be able to be repaired in the field. But literally, they rebuilt the entire unit in the field, and it still didn't work. And they are as perplexed as, we're frustrated, they're perplexed, because they're like, it's designed to, you hook it up to the meter, you get a code, and you swap out the condenser, and it should be fine, and it didn't do that. So yes, there are labor costs that are in it, but as Dave Ely, who is the architect of record, and North Branch are saying, it's not even under warranty because it never worked correctly. It's like, so they're saying that under warranty, parts are covered and labor isn't, and he's like, warranty didn't even start yet because it didn't work. So there's a whole lot of,
Interesting.
trust me, we're advocating very strongly in the meetings and saying, hang on a second here. You know, we need to make sure that everybody understands that we're trying to get a unit that operates. So.
So there's been a lot of time spent on that. There'll be more time spent on that because we're with you. It's like, why would we have to pay labor costs, or why would we have to pay all of the labor costs for a unit which we don't believe was necessarily functioning right to begin with? So that is in the works. We met about it today. We sent some emails over vacation or right before vacation, and we'll continue to work on that.
Any update, and this is a question I had, any update on the breaker that we were talking about at one point? Because I don't see that tracked anywhere.
The surge suppression?
Yeah.
So they talked to some people in the electrical field, and the recommendation is to price out a main surge protector as well as an additional one on our IT equipment, because there was thoughts how downstream do you go? Do you do a main one and then one on each of the equipment? Do you do a main one and then kind of branch out and do some for branches type of thing? So now that the decision has been made to do mainly a main one and then IT equipment, that is now being then going out to bid to see what that cost would be. So we asked them to kind of give us a ballpark before they did any engineering work on it, because we want to see, you know, is this a $5,000 thing? Is this a $30,000? Is this a $180,000 thing? Like, we need to have some more information before we give a green light on that. Now, once the solar's up and running, the solar will be able to condition the electricity more than it is right now. So that does provide some protective factors as well. But the thought is also to add it to the main breaker also.
So stay tuned is what I just heard.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, do you have another update?
No, well, just the capital projects fund. So this year, as we kind of look at making sure our revenues match our expenses for the capital projects fund, which is again, work for the elementary school as well as work at the middle school, we are projecting that we would need to use about $115,000 of fund balance from the general fund to cover that. So the breakdown of that is that the elementary cost as of now have been around $45,500. We don't see that going up too much really at all. And so the ask at a future meeting would be to kind of take $45,572 from the capital improvement expendable trust fund, which was to be used for pre-bond work at the elementary school. And then all the North Branch's work will be covered through ESSER 3, which we use about $217,000, as well as the municipal lease. So there won't be any extra on North Branch work. So the $115,000 is coming from Resilient, which is our commissioning agent for the Phase 2 at the middle school, introspective systems, which is the solar. And again, we're no longer paying introspective until July, so there won't be any increases in that. Windy Hill Associates, which is our architects, electrical, structural for the Phase 2 at the middle school. That is the larger one, where we expect that to be around $68,000 to $70,000. DDH Energy Consulting, so that's Dick Henry. And we put it in 20,000. We're not near 20,000. The only reason we'd get up close to that would be if we needed his help more with the Inflation Reduction Act. If we found out like, hey, now's the time, the IRS has kind of figured out what we need to do for Inflation Reduction Act. And, you know, we can see ourselves getting a decent amount of money, but we need some help kind of making sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's in order to get the maximum amount of money that we can get. So as of now, we don't know where the IRS is with that, but we might use his services at that point. And then Niebling Consulting, which we haven't paid for any work with Niebling since August. So these are projections through the end of the year, which would be about $115,000. So that is part of what are the expenses that we would need to make up for for the general fund. Obviously, the general fund is also making up for increased energy costs, increased costs, well, not increased costs, but higher than budgeted costs for special ed in regards to transportation, and out-of-district placement, and some other increased costs as well. But we believe that we are gonna have more than enough fund balance to cover the increased costs.
So the question is, what's the deficit, capital projects deficit, this current fiscal year that we will need to potentially sell for in June?
Capital projects,
Yes,
115,000.
that's it.
Yep. Yeah, so, which might come as a surprise to people, especially people listening, because, they hear, bigger deficit last year and a bigger deficit next year. So, I mean, a lot of us might think, well, this year is somewhere in the middle, but it's not somewhere in the middle. It's gonna be around 115,000 that we don't have revenue to match that. But we will have fund balance.
Yeah, that is lower than I anticipated.
That's lower, yeah. And you mentioned we don't have any guidance yet from the IRS? Wasn't
We do
that
not.
supposed to come out in February?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Awesome, okay.
They're busy.
Yes.
So in regard to the work, and I know we talked a little bit about the LMS sign, the board hasn't met and had that conversation yet. I was surprised that the LMS sign was rolled in as a change order to the work. I don't know what the other board sentiment was, but for me, the optics of it were terrible, mainly because within a couple of days prior, right, we had a presentation to the public where we said we're gonna have to potentially reduce staff, right? And here we are spending X amount of money, $13,000, whatever, not directly associated to project and project work that they need, where we just said, well, we're not gonna spend money because we have all these other issues within the district that we're trying to solve for. I'm not saying that the sign isn't nice or that it's not a good asset to have as a part of the building. I'm just saying how we paid for it, I think, is wrong.
So I think timing is important. If you look at the change order, what date was that change order approved?
It was one of the, it was potential change order 006, so it was one of the earlier ones. I don't have a date right here.
I don't know if the board was aware of that. In fairness, maybe it's something I just overlooked and didn't see or didn't question, but it was news to me that that was rolled in.
It was disclosed to the board, but it was July. And at that point in July, the board did not know there was a financial concern. We had just uncovered it at the end of June, like June 29th into July 4th weekend. That's when we were like, what the heck is going on? And nowhere did anybody, even with the what the heck is going on, did we get a whiff of it being where it landed. So, and as I explained to the board, that sign was taken down in front of the old canopy, or where the canopy is now. That's where the sign used to be, right in the middle there. It was taken down and it was incorporated into that building project. So when we put the new canopy up, that sign was supposed to go right where you see it out in the yard. For reasons beyond my control, it didn't happen. And then when that got closed out, I have received feedback from members of the community, where's the sign? We were promised a sign. And so in that meeting in July, I said, we promised a sign, we need to follow through on our promise and get the sign in. And if it's a change order, it's a change order. I will tell you, it was half the cost of the sign that we had spec'd. So we were planning on a $20,000 sign. North Branch was able to deliver it for 13 or 14 or something. So in that meeting, Doug is new, and I just said, we need to do the sign. We committed to that. The public expected it. We told people that was going to happen. The easier thing to do would have been to take the old sign and just dig holes out there and stick it in the ground. But we said, we don't want to put an old sign out in front. We want a new sign, properly messaging. We want a double-sided one. We had all this conversation. I'm hoping people on facilities remember that this was all part of the canopy project. And so I agree. The optics, sitting here today and looking back on that, are not the best optics. But at that moment in time, I do I stand behind the decision, which is we need to communicate to our public. And that signboard was part of how we were going to do it, enhancing it with a double-sided that people could read, because if you remember, people pulled in, there was the sign over in front of the school, you couldn't hardly even see it as you drove around the back to do pickup, because unless
The
you...
buses are
Only the
there.
buses pull out front, yeah.
And unless you parked, we had all that conversation, unless you parked and walked into the school, then you went by the sign. It really wasn't an effective communication tool. And if you remember, I actually went and approached neighbors at the end of McElwain and tried to figure out, would somebody be willing to enter into an agreement to have the sign located out there? Because it's a better location even, but we weren't able to succeed with that request, which is fine. I mean, so anyway, that's where we landed on the sign being.
I've said my point.
Do we ever get the sign approval for the end of McElwain, a bigger sign than the one that's like this big that says Litchfield Middle School?
So, great question. I had emailed, who does that? It's the guy, Jeff, I can't remember
Oh,
his title.
that's all right, I just,
Let
it just
me
occurred to
close
me.
that loop, because we had asked that a while ago and I'd forgotten about it, so I'll
Isn't it
follow
the
up
road
on
agent? Is that part of the road agent?
No,
Just the
it's
sign
the,
is so small unless you,
that.
yeah,
This is the building permits.
we need a post.
Jeff Blackwell, but I don't know his title. But I'll reach
Building
back out to
inspector, I
Jeff.
think.
Maybe we can get a post. A Brendan post. All right.
One other question, Mr. Totten, while we have you. There was, on the January 2023 invoice for North Branch, it's listing the net change orders at 176, 178 on the actual for page 1 of that document.
Yeah.
And when I see change orders on our sheet, it's off, it says 173.
So the North Branch document is going to also include the 24,595 that we're gonna get reimbursed for. So but the one for the invoice that you're seeing is not gonna include the $22,070 that just went for the masonry work. So, would have.
Not expecting an answer. If you want to take a look at it,
No, so
just
if
don't know
you
if
go
it's completely
to
reconciled.
the LMS North Branch Phase 2 change orders, and then if you highlight change orders on that first tab,
Yep.
cells B6 through B11, you'll see that the sum is 176,000.
It's 178.
So North Branch is accounting at that point for change orders 1 through 6, which has a sum of 176, 178. Now, since then, yesterday, we finally approved 007, which I added to the sheet of that 22,000. So that's what's bumping it to 198, and then we take out the 24,000, which
reimbursement.
North Branch isn't gonna take out because we paid them that. But that's part of when we start paying back introspective per month. We don't pay back 24,000 right there because we prepaid for work that introspective needed to do, but North Branch did that work.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And what is the percentage of contingency that, I know we talked about this a minute ago, but what's the percentage of contingency that North Branch still has that we're anticipating being returned?
So we're more unsure of that now than we were a month ago, because if the labor for all the repairs go through, a decent amount of that might come from the North Branch contingency. Instead of them billing us extra, they might use the North Branch contingency to pay for that. So we're not quite sure at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I got.
All right. Student rep report. Do you have anything to say?
No, not really tonight. If you guys have any questions, just let me know.
Well, I like your input. If you have any input, please feel free.
And just if I may, so the board's, aware, because we're trying to enhance the student rep role. There is a new law change relative to that. We've been trying to get a meeting set up. I think Mr.
Yes.
McDonough is getting one set up.
Yeah, he was supposed to do it today.
Yep. So, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna talk about expectations, how do we comply with the spirit of the law, and at the same time, honor Emma's time, as a busy student, so we're trying to we'll work on all of that, and then we'll give the board an update on where it lands. Did you get my email about the student rep?
I did, yeah.
Can you just share what,
Yeah, so on April is 8th.
oh, I don't know.
It's weekend in April, I believe. It's going to be a meeting of the Southern District student reps, just to network and kind of give some information of what like your role should be.
So in our South Central Superintendent group, we were talking about this, really trying to honor what the intent of the law is with student voice at board meetings. And Brian Balke, who is superintendent in Goffstown, said, we should have a conference. Like, we have conferences for board members to train them. Why are we not training student reps? And everybody went, great idea. So much so that the goal is to have it in South Central in April. The concept is that Emma and I would go. There may even come a point where the board chair would be invited to be a part of that. And then to turn it into a statewide thing for the future. So the School Board Association, which we belong to, all over the concept. So, so we're building it up and getting it done. Brian Balke's doing the bulk of the work, but it's exciting stuff. So,
I'm excited.
and we're hoping to have, Brian's concept is what we try to do, which is a junior and senior. So you're training for the next year, and that's who would come to the training. So that'll all be part of the dialogue when we have our meeting.
So Emma, are you gonna be joining us every meeting now? Is that the
I
plan?
believe so. I think we're going to touch when we have our meeting, but as far as I know, yes.
I'd like to, for a future meeting, to move you up in the agenda so you're not sitting here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, so
I don't wanna feel like it's a waste of your time either.
this is part of the conversation we have to have,
Right.
because the spirit of the law is that the student will stay for the entire meeting and will be able to weigh in and provide input. We've always
Our
done.
meetings are 4 or 5, I mean, come on, that's a lot.
I get it, but talk to Ralph about that, because, the legislature passed this.
Right.
But I think we have to realize that our meetings are long. Our meetings are way longer than many school board meetings, and so we have to figure out, is there a way to maybe have it earlier on the agenda? Ask, hey, have you looked at stuff coming up on the new business? Do you have feedback for us before you go do your chemistry homework or whatever? So we have to figure all that out. So we'll be back with a plan.
Okay.
But now it's a regular item on the agenda, and
Which is fantastic, I just wanna make sure that we're making good use of your time, right, given your other commitments that you have.
Yeah, I
so.
appreciate that.
Okay. Public minutes from February 15th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the public minutes from February 15th.
I'll second.
Any future?
I had made some changes on it, but I think Jan got all the changes, so I think we're good.
Further
you
conversation?
did the comment.
Yeah, I did. It worked great.
She is
Yeah,
like
she's on
that.
top.
when
That's
stuff
awesome.
goes
Yeah.
in.
That's
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Now we're on reports. Tina, did you have any committees this week?
We have not.
Andrew?
Website was canceled yesterday due to a conflict, and then policy was also canceled today. So no.
Okay.
I had emergency management at least a couple weeks ago. There's going to be communication coming out fairly soon about the new blue light emergency alert system installed at each school, so that will be good. Our next wellness meeting is April 11th at 3:30, and Emma is going to be working on a wellness calendar, and our goal actually, we want to, I think what we've decided, originally we were going to target kind of everybody, staff, community, students, like open up the wellness calendar to everybody. But I think we've rallied in our expectations, and we're going to start with staff. And Emma's done a couple of these calendars, got it out through emails. We could still get it out through emails, but really just focus on staff and also have like a contest. We're just to encourage participation. We don't care like what you do for activities, and we're not going to track that, but just like a simple survey, or like I don't know. So I guess it would be a survey saying, did you participate or did you not? Like, did you participate? So then we could just enter each like staff member into a raffle. So just something fun for April. Start small. Hopefully it'll grow. So that's really what's going on for wellness.
Great.
We have a policy tonight too to look at.
I think I should have a joint loss meeting coming up at some point. Because I think we've only met once, and we're gonna walk through the schools at some point. I'm just,
Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
yeah, thanks. And that's all I had. Heidi, did you have any meetings?
Tina covered grading and reporting, and I think we covered a lot of that already tonight with Mary's report. And then there was not a facilities meeting. I'm wondering what people's thoughts are on maybe having committee reports be monthly instead of every agenda.
Yeah.
Just because it's not that it takes up a huge amount of time, but I don't know that it needs to be on every agenda.
That's true.
So-
Most of the meetings are monthly anyway.
Is there a requirement that we?
No, I think what I would do, because we're in a copy the agenda mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna leave it there and we can just skip it. But
Yeah.
if you're asking me to create a first of the month agenda and a second of the month agenda, it's gonna get.
No.
No.
I also think it's helpful during budget committee season to have a budget committee update.
Yeah.
And that I agree with, but I just think during this downtime, I'm not sure we need to have every update every meeting.
I neglected community input at 8:00. Is there any more community input? Okay, just wanted to take that off.
Oh, I missed it.
You're right,
Pardon?
time flies.
It does, I'll give you an update. The hockey team is winning in the semifinals, 1-0 so far. That's it, there you go, Emma, there's your update, that's good news. And now we're on to new business, an hour and a half later. Policy, special ed funding.
So the policy committee, we had a miscommunication. What is the month of March really goofed us up, because we're not meeting on the first and third Wednesday, we're meeting on the second and fourth. We got goofed up with the town because it got placed on the town calendar incorrectly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it got goofed up with personal calendars.
Work calendars.
Yeah.
So the policy committee hasn't actually met yet, but we do have the two drafts, and I'm gonna actually, Lauren's coming to the next meeting, right, on the
She is.
22nd. She was gonna be here tonight, but she's coming on the 22nd, so I'm gonna suggest that we hold on wellness. She'll do a presentation on that. She's already presented it to the committee,
The
which
wellness.
was committee of two, right?
Yeah, you and I,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then she'll come and do the presentation here. So, and then the special ed funding one, you can click the link, it's there. There were comments that were made on it, and I'm not sure how you want to proceed on that funding one.
So on the funding one, this is the one that we've been talking about really since November. I know the board has seen it, and now it's in a policy state. The superintendent had a comment about the handshake agreement. That's what we've always referred to it as. I think everyone knows that. Whether there was actually an agreement or not is, who knows, right? Maybe it's better suited to say understanding. I don't necessarily care either way. I don't know if the board has a strong opinion one way or another.
So a comment that I have on on it is, and I'm not against it, it's just that when we create a fund balance at the end of the year, it follows a certain order. So let's say we underspend in special ed by $230,000. Well, if we have on the warrant articles to move $125,000 into capital improvement expendable trust fund or into the class size, trust fund type of thing, it grabs first from the fund balance before it goes back to taxpayers. So we might want to give back, say, 230,000 in this example, but if it's going to those trust funds, which got approved by the voters in March, when we don't necessarily know our fund balance, then that's the tricky part in it. So
I see this as carving out the special education from that.
Yes, I do too.
I see it as, and I don't know if it's that way in terms of the way it shows in the budget for you and with the fund balance, but the way that I see this as is if the town has allotted X number of dollars for us and we underspend by Y number of dollars, those Y number of dollars go back to the town and the capital improvement fund and those trust funds would only be funded with the underspend from the other categories. Is that complicated to implement?
it is, because it goes in a certain order.
But
So
this is
it would be
how it's been
committed.
done for many years, right? Under the handshake agreement, where if there was underspend for special education, that would be pooled together separately, returned, and then any underspend from all other accounts would be encumbered or right, used to fund other.
I think this was Corey's point all along, which is, I always try to do that in spirit, but sometimes I can't.
Yeah.
Because the law says the voters, so you have a handshake agreement, and then you have a vote, and the vote was to put $125,000 into a reserve fund. The vote overrides the handshake agreement. So he said in most years, we do return that.
Right.
You know, we budget to return 200,000, and you can say that all came from special ed underspend, maybe.
So is the answer then to make sure that the warrant articles specifically say underspend, not including special education
Yeah,
underspend?
and I think this is a miss for the three articles you're going to warrant next week, going to vote next week.
I think if you try to, I mean, I don't know where DRA would even stand on adding caveats into the warrant articles, you know, because remember, we have to write the language to pass DRA muster. And we're probably the only town that has a handshake agreement that talks about special ed underspend. I don't know that, but it just may become really cumbersome to try to craft it. And, you know, and it's too late for this year too. The warrant is done. But we also didn't have a policy. So, you know, you take a concept or understanding, and now you're elevating it to a policy level. And Corey would have said the same thing. He always said the same thing, which is, yeah, I know that. I try to do that in spirit, but there could be years where that doesn't occur. And I think, if I'm wrong, I think that's what Doug's trying to say here is, when push comes to shove, if Gordon was sitting here, he would say, here's what you have to do, because this is what the public voted for, so you have to fund it this way. I mean, even the percentages up to, that's written because what if we don't have the total amount when you add the three up? That's why it was written that way.
So
It doesn't include carving this out first.
Talking out loud, is the way to resolve this when we encumber funds? Do we encumber the end of year funds to say they're encumbered to be returned?
We'd have to check more with Gordon or other people about that.
Because if we know of the 500,000, I'm just making numbers up, of underspend, 300,000 of that is from special education funding. If at the end, when we're going through those encumbrances and we say, we're gonna make a motion to have 300,000 be returned to the taxpayers, that would therefore be an encumbrance, in theory.
School board can encumber. Yep.
And then that can be returned, and then just the 200,000 can be used for, and again, these are made up numbers, but.
Do I have to encumber money this year to pay for the $115,000 deficit? How does that work?
That's before the fund balance. So we have to zero out that account, or if the food balance account was in the negatives, we'd have to zero out that before we were even talking about fund balance. That money wouldn't be considered fund balance because it had a purpose which it had to go to.
And one other question, because this all may be moot. Are you anticipating an underspend in special ed?
Well, my understanding was that this was for fiscal year 20.
This is for next year.
Next
Next
year.
year.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
this,
so-
this isn't for this year that we were,
No.
yep.
Ideally, it's
We-
the same conversation in June, right? Once we have a better picture of the financials. However, our conversation, what we talked about in November, was specifically related for next fiscal year.
Right, got it. Well, the only reason I say that is because you brought up the idea of this year's warrant articles, which are funded out of this year's
Yeah.
fund
Right.
balance. So we're really not talking about this year's fund balance. We're talking
Well-
about next year's fund balance.
And again, we did have reductions made by the budget committee to the special education lines during the FY '24
Yeah.
budget process.
We did last year, so the reason I asked
we
that
did again
question
this
is
year.
the 150,000 that got cut out of the current budget.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we may be coming back to you saying, we have to now dip into the special ed reserve
Mm-hmm.
because it's not an
Right.
underspend, it's an overspend in that line.
But the reason this came up was before we presented our budget, you know, they had asked if we were gonna honor that handshake agreement. But this policy is contingent, I believe, on the budget committee also agreeing not to make cuts to that line, and they did for FY '24.
That is true.
That is correct.
That's why it should have been.
But we don't
I
have
thought
a-
It should have been an MOU or MOA, but they did not agree to doing that.
We also don't have a signed policy in advance, so, right?
Right.
So I can see that both ways.
Sure.
So really, we're preparing for the FY '25 budget at this point, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's very easy to get tripped up with the fund balance this year and the warrant articles this year that are funded by this year's fund balance. That's not what we're talking about. And then next year's, you're right, there were cuts that were made, so.
So I think we might be better off if we touch base with Gordon too, because again, I'm not against this at all, especially if they don't
yeah.
cut the money like it, because it is not easy to budget for special ed.
Right.
Right.
And so to not have to kind of go after look at every cent, which is not easy to do, you know, it can be a very good system for a town. We just got to figure out how it can be done, knowing the order that fund balance goes in, what comes out of it first, second, third.
So
it
this
sounds
gets
like more information.
tabled for
I guess my frustration with this is we've been talking about it now for 5 months. Right? I mean, I think
Yep.
at some point here in the very near term, we just need a decision. So,
I think we're
it's
trying to
prompting
find a
some good-
compromise,
I think
right?
it's prompting some good questions, though.
it is
Research back.
5 months worth.
Hey, that's nothing compared to committee work.
All right, so this one I don't think we're voting on tonight.
Guess not.
My only comment on wellness, and I know we're gonna table it, right, that's the recommendation, is it seems really long and really lengthy, and I don't know why that is. I'm, again, new to this part of the game, so why isn't our wellness policy written to follow state mandate?
This is.
It is very long. Lauren will explain it more, but it did go through the wellness committee as well. There's a model New Hampshire School Boards Association policy. Part of the reason that it is very long is that not only is it policy language, but there's practice language in there as well. So that is.
Does there have to
Is
be? When I look
mandated
at
through
policy and I
there.
look at all of our other policies, it's very policy
I
specific.
know, but no.
Usually
it
we have
does.
don't we have like a policy JCL and then an R for procedures and
So
practices?
my understanding is the text that's in black is the,
Current policy?
Yeah, and the
The
blue's
current
the
policy
added.
is about 5 pages. This is about 9.
and the blue
Blue is
text is
what's
what's
added.
being added in.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
exactly
Oh, okay.
it. And she has what you're not seeing is there's like 5 other backup documents that she'll present. So she'll show you exactly how she got to this. I think the other piece is that wellness is one of those all-encompassing policies. So you have, you know, food, service, nutrition incorporated into it. And there's so many pieces that come together that.
Phys ed courses and yeah.
It's overarching.
Almost one page of it also is the social emotional component that was not accounted for in the prior wellness policy either. So
I'm trying to look at it, but
Yeah.
I think the one that kind of threw me off was the walking and biking to school section. I'm like, really? What does this have to do?
oh, those are like those sections. Yeah.
But is it
should be
mandated
cut
in the
out.
wellness? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make
So,
sense to be
it has
in the.
to
You know what I
be
think would be
somewhere.
helpful is if, and
Yeah.
I think the
What-
the
like,
New
why am I
Hampshire
reading
School
this in this
Board
policy? I don't
Association
get it.
policy should be in there,
don't live
it
on
just
the bike
as another
path.
link.
Yeah,
So we can
she'll,
compare.
she'll present all of that. And I think also if you look at the legal references, you've got federal law reference, state law reference, Department of Ed rules reference. This is all encompassing because it's pulling a lot of stuff in. You know, somebody came here and talked about a sidewalk down Pinecrest.
Yeah.
Remember that conversation?
Yeah.
Well, you can qualify for Safe Routes to School money. but
I'm
you
still
need a
waiting for the
policy-
crosswalk in front of Campbell.
You need a policy that gets you there. And so here it is in the wellness, like we're promoting. I mean, actually, this town does a great job with the bike path. And I mean, there was an investment when Albuquerque was laid out to make it wide enough to have a bike path. Not a lot of communities have that. So now it gets incorporated in, you qualify for grant money. There's a lot of positives that go along with it, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I also read this particular section of walking and biking to school, and it says the district will cooperatively work with local police and public works committees to ensure that safe routes to and from school are maintained for students. So does that mean for each student that decides to walk or take a bike, we're actually reaching out to the police department and confirming that it's safe? And how do we document
do that.
Well,
in
we have
Hudson.
policies, but for each school.
Yeah.
So we, you know, like
Plowing the
GMS,
bike
we don't
path.
allow students to bike or walk to school because it's on 3A and it's a hazard. LMS, I think we allow kids to, I think we do allow kids to
We
bike
do,
and
they
walk.
have to wear a helmet.
Yeah.
I think it's grade
Fine,
specific
I just
too.
want to make sure our policy is reflective of this, and that what we say in our policy, we're actually doing.
And
Crosswalk,
what that policy is
crosswalk.
doing is it's allowing you to, because you have that collaborative piece, so you can then go for grant money
Right.
by saying, yes, we have a procedure for this. So the sidewalk question is a great one, because that would enhance who can actually bike to LMS. I think you're limited, I mean, if you can't ride your bike down Charles Bancroft, you're probably not coming from that direction and up the hill. It's gonna tie into the bike path, which is the
Right.
key
Well, the
thing.
sample School Boards Association policy is also 9 pages, so, I think.
Okay.
we have that.
I'll look forward to the
So,
presentation.
yeah,
It
Alright.
just seemed like a lot of,
it
In this
is a
particular
lot.
class.
Makes sense now.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Uh,
Well, back.
So the list of 5-year accomplishments, I'd like to have the board just indulge for a second. So Tara, thank you for sharing the document.
Start of it.
Our team met and really worked on this to say, okay, so what have we pulled off? What has been accomplished over the last 5 years? And it's pretty, it tells quite a story, I think, when you work your way through it. So, you know, the first thing is the enhanced goals are laid out. To me, they are way better than the goals that were in place prior. The goals were not as actionable prior. And so now, because we have actionable goals, the schools are better able to do the school reporting and to write their action plans at their level. So that's laid out as an enhancement. School successes, you can see in there some things, there's more to be done on this. The one who did not look at it yet is Griffin, obviously, because there's nothing typed in, but things that we've accomplished with the graduation rate at Campbell, having the plans for the students at Campbell. At the middle school, you know, doing away with the study halls and meeting the instructional hours and having the best block embedded in as instructional time. That was a huge enhancement. Even combining the bus routes together. I mean, we were able to add to the time at LMS, the instructional day with the combined bus routes. I'd like to think down the road it could lead to some savings when we renegotiate our contract with First Student. Somebody said, oh, full-day kindergarten, my
Yeah.
goodness, that's absolutely,
I'm adding that in.
When did the new bus contract come in too? So it's not just the bus routes, but we have new buses.
We do have new buses.
I mean,
Well-
and just the safety and
We
the
have
The cameras on the
timeliness of them
buses.
now compared to the breakdowns.
9 brand-new buses, right? Whereas prior to that, it was, remember the buses said
Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn. It was actually Brooklyn, Connecticut, they
Oh,
told
okay.
us, so
Yeah.
anyway. But
Yep. And cameras on them.
That was our bus.
Our bus is coming at 3:35, and it was at 3:50 at the beginning of the year, our GMS bus, so that's huge, it's one of the last ones. I went to a workshop yesterday with someone from Goffstown and someone from Milford, They do not have one-to-one in their middle school. I go, what did you do during COVID? And she goes, we were at the will of whoever's parents would let them. I'm like, you don't have one-to-one computers in these? I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. Like, that is so yesterday for us.
Right.
Especially at a middle school. And how did they survive the pandemic? And they were hybrid and that's.
So major themes, new staff. I mean, I know we talk all the time about staff that we don't have, that there are holes in our staff, paraprofessionals, et cetera. But we're actually, it's not a Litchfield phenomena. It's actually a statewide, nationwide phenomena. If you read
I also
any
learned
literature
that
on it.
at my Hudson has a 20% turnover rate every year in its staff. And Wyndham is higher the last 2 years. It's just, there is going to be a mass exodus from teaching. I'm saying it now, mass exodus. People are gonna retire early. It's the climate and cultures, and that's what we all had in common with these middle school teachers. They do that there too. The lack of respect, the student behaviors, the new what is it called? Progressive discipline is not helping and the more stuff coming down from the DO. I'm very afraid for the future of education in this country. That's all I have to say.
And, you know, if you look at our ability, we attracted some rock stars to our district. And, you know, it's not all doom and gloom when it comes to the staff thing. And I think that's the point that we're trying to make here. You know, we've been able to attract people at the SAU level who want to work in Litchfield.
Are you talking about Doug?
Have come in and done a good job for us in Litchfield. You know, we've got teachers who have come in and have done a good job, and I just think it sometimes gets lost. And I just think we should pause a minute and recognize that. Let's see what else. The social media presence, that's the other thing, is our whole concept of branding has been enhanced with the social media presence that we've taken on. We had a hardly used Twitter account, and now we've got fairly active Facebook pages. I mean, there's pretty good stuff that's going out there. During the pandemic, to Liz's point, if you looked around, I mean, remember, we walked in August and said we want to go with a hybrid schedule, because that's what everybody was doing. And our community pushed back and said, we want 5 days a week. We want our kids in school. And, you know, walked out with the admin team, and they're like, how are we going to do this? I'm like, we're going to figure it out, because that's what the public's asking us to do. So let's take lessons from Europe. Europe was 2 months ahead of us, because they had opened schools already. How do we learn what they've done well and then implement it here? So I think we did pretty darn well with the pandemic. Facilities, you can read that list for yourself, but it's like, you know, the delayed maintenance that existed across the district was absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, we had a whoops with the project, but we got a boatload of stuff done, and we were fairly creative in the way that we approached it, and we leveraged grant money, you know, everything we can do to make sure that we're giving the best experience and the safest experience to our students. We've solved safety issues all across the district. Probably Alice ought to go in here too, because that's another thing that's been implemented and new. And I can tell you there are districts that won't do Alice training because they're like, we don't want to think about it, so we're just not going to think about it. And I'm like, you're not going to think about it, but when you need it, what are you going to think about? Because
our presenter didn't know about it. He's in Rochester, New York. No idea.
Dining services, I think, you know, what I heard, Lauren came in at the same time that I did, but from what I've heard, it's been revamped across the board. And so that's, again, a focus on adding to that program. She's fully staffed this year. I mean, it's just
Emma, how's the dining at
pretty
CHS?
incredible things.
All right, good.
Well, considering they have 2 burners to work with at LMS.
But that's going to be resolved with the
Right.
with the project. If you look at curriculum instruction and assessment, I mean, one-to-one Chromebook is reflected in there. There's a ton of stuff that has gone on with that. Doesn't mean we're still not working. It doesn't mean we're not having conversations, but we've accomplished an awful lot. I'm proud that our Portrait of a Learner stuff is not only done, but is being implemented with the work-study practices. So there's a lot of really good items there. The great teachers and great staff, it's pretty notable that our CBAs have passed. We have negotiated in really good faith with our associations, and then we have brought the message to our taxpayers, and they've backed us up. Even when we overshot on that first CBA with LEA, we didn't say, oh, well, we'll wait till next year. We said, our teachers deserve to have increases. What can we do? And we followed all the processes that were allowed to get another CBA in front of the voters, and they backed us up on that. Lives and Learn Academy. I mean, that summer, that is huge, that we have staff members coming in here in the summer engaging in professional development. And so that's been another huge enhancement for us. The climate and culture work, really trying to give some sense of identity and unity to the district with the rebranding, the retirement tea to recognize our people who were retiring. LMS there's a significant number of paras who are going to retire this year, but they're retiring because they've been with us for a long time, and they're ready to retire, and they'll be recognized at the retirement tea because that's part of what we need to do. And getting the bills in here to do the culture and climate work. That's been a long time coming. I hate to say that was a victim of the pandemic. We just couldn't get after it during it.
Lower staff, that's gonna add to the climate and culture. It does in my world. Not having a para, it's brutal.
Community engagement.
Not fun games anymore.
The website is going to be an enhancement. We're focused on the right thing. The community forums, board initiative to make sure that we're getting word out. I know we've had a slow start to that, but that is coming along. So anyway, when you really sit down and compile this and think of how many things we just added, I'm watching you all type as we go. Like, we're not sitting on our heels and we're not sitting on our hands. We are trying to move this district forward. We're trying to be more responsive to parents. We're trying to meet student needs in a better way. We have work to do, but it is not doom and gloom. And it's so easy with negative Facebooks or email complaints that come in to really say, what are we doing here? And when you sit back on it, there's been a lot of positive directive changes taking place, and I think pausing on it makes sense. So I'd encourage you to keep adding to this list because it's too easy to get caught up in the negative.
Thanks for that reminder.
That's my place.
The board should do that. I mean, I think there's progress on the goals and there's reporting on the goals, but I think this activity is probably good for the board to do every year. Keep up with it.
All right, the calendar.
Yeah, so we presented it last time. The board wanted to wait for public input. I did not get any input on it, and
I didn't
so
see anything.
I'm asking the board to approve the calendar.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I really want that Friday off before December. I think that'd be valuable, but I'm not gonna,
Right?
I'm not,
Or
I
the
know.
kids.
All right, keep 'em home. I'll approve it, but anyway.
All right, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. 500. You have your calendar. Can we announce the start date of school?
We will publish the calendar and get it out there now, so yes.
What
You
is
want
this-
to verbally say
right,
it now?
when is the first day of school?
Okay.
So we can final up our vacation plans.
28th.
Yep, so
August 28th.
So we're now in.
For a 4-day
because-
week.
Because of our collective bargaining agreement, we now are starting the Monday before Labor Day. Getting 4 days of class in, taking a 4-day weekend for Labor Day, and then.
That's
off and
huge.
I love
That
that.
4-day
Yeah.
weekend is huge.
Yeah.
It's building up the stamina of the students, easing them back in. It's a million degrees in the classrooms. Maybe not LMS, but the rest of the schools. Awesome.
And this has us projected to end on the 12th of June. So that's the other piece, is that we're, because of remote learning, we're wrapping up mid-June at this point. So families
Instead of
do
late
have,
June.
a full
Yeah.
2 weeks in June
I know,
of
it's
vacation
huge.
time. So
That's great.
I know parents asked about getting out earlier in June, and the calendar is sort of delivering on that, as is remote learning.
Well, the camps, people who work need to get their camps firmed up, yep, the sooner the
Problem is
better.
camps don't start until like the week of June 24th. So now I got to figure out my kids for a weekend.
I have a teenager if you want her. She's all yours.
Done.
So what's the last day, just officially now? No.
June 12th.
Okay, thank you.
This is next year.
Next year.
Oh, I thought you were talking about this year.
Oh, no, we don't know
Next
that
year.
yet.
Oh, I was like, gonna put it on my
Next
calendar.
year.
We do though, right?
We do know that. I mean,
Yeah.
we were ending on a Wednesday. We had one snow day, which now we're ending on a Thursday. I don't know the date off the
Okay.
top of my head, but.
I'll figure it out.
15th?
Somewhere in
Is it
that
the 15th?
ballpark. You know, if there's one more event that we just have to cancel on, it would be that Friday,
Thursday the 15th.
Thursday the 15th.
Called it.
is
So
the
does that
current
mean graduation is the 9th?
Thursday. Yeah, so I'm still waiting to hear from the graduation committee.
Okay.
We haven't had an official
No.
pitch yet, so.
Emma, did you hear that?
What?
She's already zoned out, I don't blame you. We're just waiting to hear
Oh, yeah.
from the graduation committee, awesome. COVID updates.
So do we need to do these anymore? That's my next
Yeah,
question.
I'm just so done
I
with
mean,
COVID. It should be virus updates.
well, if you remember,
I thought we removed it from the agenda.
Yeah, I want the numbers there, and I go look at them on the website if I choose to, but I
know
don't
if
know
they're
that we
called.
need to spend
We
our
need to
time
discuss it.
reviewing it, unless
I'm-
there's an anomaly.
It's on the,
remember, we overreached it. We took it all down, and then we heard from
Yeah.
people not to do that. So now we're back to doing it.
there was a little blurb
was.
right during vacation with the high school.
And I do, and I think the nurses should send updates as necessary,
Yeah,
or the
that should
building
be-
administrators, but I'm not sure it needs to be a board
Maybe we
conversation.
maybe we move reports and COVID to an appendix section.
Yes.
Supplemental materials.
Yeah.
Well,
And then our agenda item is every other meeting we will review reports.
I mean, another concept, we haven't done it, but some boards do the consent agenda. So you just park a bunch of stuff
Oh,
there, and you begin by saying, is there anybody who wants to move something from consent to discussion? And one board member can say, I'd like to discuss the COVID numbers, and then we'll have a conversation about it. So it's there for you, and if everybody says,
Yeah.
I'm good to go, you just leave it there. And so then the public has access to it. I mean, I don't mind building the agenda that way if you want me to try it.
I think we gotta work to shorten these meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
do.
we
Yeah,
table this and wait till we have a new board in place. and
Agreed,
get it-
but I'm just saying it out loud.
yeah. Okay, school board comments,
Plowing,
brief.
very brief, plowing, $8,000 and change. When are we expected to wrap up that payment?
Oh, what month does it end?
Does it end in March? Did we just make our last payment, or do we have one more payment to make?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
So,
It was somewhere that it showed that a few meetings ago when we asked, like with the lawn mowing. Okay. Any comment?
Oh, I do have a comment.
Yes, oh, please share.
I was doing some reflecting on the land purchase article 2 on the warrant, as I often do when I drive by. And we kind of touched on it earlier, but I think we have an opportunity here to work with the town and create something that benefits everybody. So, and we've talked about, we're only using the top 10 acres for the school site. That leaves 25 acres potentially of conservation, including the wetlands. And I know that conservation has been looking to purchase parcels of land in order to put them into conservation. So if Article 2 passes, we'll own that property. But can we make use of the rest of the property so that the entire town benefits from it? And I don't know how it's done legally, or other than granting access or an easement for
Sublet it
conservation,
somehow.
but somehow protect the rest of that property, and see if Conservation Commission might want to take it over or establish trails back there. I mean, I think that would be a win-win for the whole town, rather than letting it just kind of get overgrown and go to waste. If we can conserve the rest of that property, I think what I've heard in town is that would be a coup for everybody.
So we've not had the conversation in public because all of the land conversations were in non-public because it was
Right.
land purchase. But if you remember, we had talked about that
Right.
at one point, that partnering with the Conservation Commission, you know, there are a variety of ways it can be done. I mean, I spent 10 years as a vice chair and treasurer of a Conservation Commission. And, you know, you can enter into you can sort of purchase the development rights. So Conservation could come along and say, you know, we'd like to buy the rights to develop that back 25 acres. So that's one concept that could be done. The other is that it can be a memo of agreement that gets written between, you know, because who cares which taxpayer group holds the land? It's held by taxpayers, right? So some could argue that the school district's a public entity, they own this land, and so they enter into an agreement with Conservation to develop ecological trails and nature walks and so forth that are accessible to students and the public.
Right.
Now, school district might say, well, our interest is, you know, we want to make sure that during the school day
Right.
that it's not accessed by the public, like it's a
Right.
school at this point. So we come into some agreement that, you
Yeah,
know,
we don't want
between these
hunters
hours,
on
it's
there.
not open to the
Right.
public, right? Hunting is another one that you have to have a conversation about,
Yeah.
so.
But I think-
You're spot on, right,
Yeah.
that this is an absolutely fabulous opportunity to work with the
Yeah,
town
and I
and
did
have
hear
an
some
asset.
concerns around that at deliberative when we were discussing Article 2. You know, I think there were some questions about.
Well, I think they were wondering why the land wouldn't stay, why it's being returned to
Right.
who is this, the seller, if.
Mrs. Riley.
Right.
Yeah, Mrs. Riley, if it doesn't end up, we don't end up building
Right.
there. And why couldn't it just be turned over? And-
Yeah.
So the answer to that is because Mrs. Riley owns the land. And-
Absolutely.
It's
I know the
it's
answer
her
to
agreement.
it.
But I want to say
Right.
it out loud that, you know, what she has agreed to do is to sell it to the school district to
For
build
a
a school
Right.
in honor of her daughter. And, you know, we have to be a little, I'm going to correct your language a little bit. 'Cause
Right.
we don't own the land.
Right. Right.
We have made a step toward owning the land, but the other contingency is that the voters
build the school.
approve
Right.
a school to
Right.
go on that piece
That's
of property.
right.
And then we can own the land. We
Yeah.
can't close on it until that's been done, so.
Right. So I guess I'm a few steps ahead, but I think it might be worth having start initiating conversations with Conservation and after the vote.
Yeah, let's see where we are
That
after a
land
week.
and that parcel, right? Without having walked it, I'm just going on what I believe I understood is
The click draw.
after the first 10 acres of buildable plot land, right, there's wetlands, and then there's the.
Ledge.
Well, yeah, then
The
there's.
drop.
Canyon.
The Grand Canyon, thank you, of
What do they
Litchfield
call
is
it
what
in
it was
Finding
referred to
Nemo?
as, and
Right.
what good
I
is
don't
that to
know.
anybody,
Right.
right? I mean, if that's the land, if that's the terrain that's there,
I
what
certainly.
value does it add to conservation?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
don't want
Plus there
kids
would
on
be-
quads back there.
The only
going
access
off the
point
edge.
to that property would be through GMS, or through the new elementary school itself.
Right. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of steps to be taken and things to be discussed and figured out. But I just wanted to kind of share those thoughts, you know, with the board publicly because, you know, it's another opportunity.
So I think we wait for Tuesday to see what the
Yeah.
voters say. But if they approve this, I would suggest that we schedule a meeting with Conservation to engage in an initial dialogue about what they envision and what possibilities there are. Because strategically, then if we're asking people to now approve the school, and by the way, we can answer the question, here's how it will be an asset to the community. That enhances the question about building the school, maybe, in some voters' minds. Versus, you want me to build a school and I still don't know what you want to do with the back part. Or will I be able to get back there
Right.
and use it? So, and I love the idea of a nature trail, an interpretive trail, a partnership with Conservation. I mean, the Boscawen Town Forest, which is 450 acres of land, we had a beautiful interpretive trail in there. So you could walk along and sign number 1, it taught you about the tree. Sign number 2 taught you about the.
I will tell you,
whatever.
as
You
someone
can totally do all
who
that.
takes their children out on nature trails as a special ed teacher, we can't do it anymore because of the ticks. And we have wide paths. We have a medieval fair in the woods, and we can't do it because of all the ticks in now.
Oh my God.
Well, it's true, they're everywhere, they're already out. But I think we can talk about that, I think that's a great idea.
I will tell you, having walked all the way back in it, I didn't, and I went with a group of, I don't remember how many there were 5 of us maybe, no ticks.
Wear a white shirt. I'll wear a white shirt when we
Because
go.
I did it, tuck the socks in, all that stuff, and there were no ticks on me at the end of that, so, and nobody else had ticks.
Did you wear an orange vest?
Yes.
I
Might
would
have the
too.
only piece of tick-free land in Litchfield.
I mean,
It's the clip.
because as you say that, right, they're everywhere, but I'm just telling you, I didn't have them there.
Well, all right.
Porcupines out there.
Thanks,
They eat 'em.
sorry.
Nope, good, I'm just moving you forward.
I just wanted to give kudos to LMS. I went to their living museum and it
I'm so
was
jealous.
actually fabulous. I learned about many different business, civic,
I
and
love that
sports
they're
leaders.
doing that.
And the only downer was to find out that I am older than Elon Musk.
Oh, I think we all are, aren't we? Oh.
I'm not.
Or thanks for saying that, because that was a great
Yeah.
event.
Oh, I've
Wish
seen
I
it done in other schools. It's awesome. I had to go to school because we had that snow event. All right, wrapping it up. We are on school. Anyone else? No comments?
Manifest? Do we have a
Manifest.
manifest? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has
I
3
think we have
signatures.
3. I mean, if anyone else wants to sign?
Is that representative of what was circulated on Friday in terms
Yes.
of the
Yep.
detail?
Yes.
161. Okay.
Correct.
I thought you had 2.5, but Heidi has a
I have a very short
short
signature.
signature, so I was
It's
like,
only
is
4
that
letters in
3?
my last name. Yeah.
And
We already did community input.
we did. And now we are going to enter into non-public session.
Make a motion to enter into non-public session.
Second,
All in favor?
I
Opposed, abstained.
you have to read the thing.
Yeah.
Yep. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected, 1, has the right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted.
Meeting's over.
Yeah, we're going into.
We're going into non-public now.
Yep, the hiring of any person as a public employee, matters which, if discussed in
Thanks for
public,
coming. Nice to meet you.
would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Excellent. We are now in non-public. It's 2 to 2.